When Michael Jordan picked up his phone on a quiet afternoon in Chicago, he had no idea that one video would change everything. A local news story popped up on his screen, and his heart stopped. There she was, Miss Eleanor Hartwell, his high school English teacher, still teaching at 85 years old. But she wasn't just teaching, she was struggling. Taking 2 buses in the freezing cold, carrying heavy bags up school steps, working until dark every single day. Michael couldn't believe what he was seeing. This woman had saved his life 35 years ago, when he was just a heartbroken 15-year-old kid who'd been cut from his basketball team. She had believed in him when he didn't believe in himself. She had given him hope when he had none. And while he'd become one of the richest athletes in the world, she was still riding buses at 85, barely surviving. That's when Michael made a decision. He was going to do something that nobody would expect, something that would shock the entire world. But first, he needed to remember exactly how this incredible teacher had changed his life. Michael Jordan leaned back in his leather chair, gazing out at the Chicago skyline from his office on the 40th floor. At 60 years old, he'd built an empire, successful businesses, a basketball legacy that would live forever, more money than he could spend in 10 lifetimes. Yet lately something felt hollow inside him. His phone buzzed. Without thinking, he picked it up and began scrolling through social media. Videos flashed past. People dancing, cooking, showing off new cars. He almost kept scrolling, but then a thumbnail caught his eye. Local teacher, still dedicated. His finger hovered over the screen. Something about the elderly woman's face in the preview image looked familiar. He tapped the video. A local news reporter stood outside Laney High School in Wilmington, North Carolina, Michael's old high school. His heart began to beat faster. "We're here to tell you about an extraordinary educator," the reporter said. "Mrs. Eleanor Hartwell has been teaching at this school for 63 years. And at 85 years old, she's still here every single day." The camera cut to a classroom. Michael's breath caught in his throat. There she was, Mrs. Hartwell. His Mrs. Hartwell. Her hair was completely white now, her face lined with deep wrinkles. But her eyes, those kind, knowing eyes, were exactly the same. She stood at the front of a classroom, pointing to a sentence on the board, her voice strong despite her frail body. "Every story matters," she told her students. "Your story, my story, the stories we read together, they all matter." The camera followed her through her day. Michael watched, transfixed, as she climbed slowly up the school steps, pausing twice to catch her breath. He watched her eat a small sandwich alone in her classroom during lunch, while grading papers with a red pen. He watched her stay late, tutoring students who struggled, her weathered hands patting shoulders, offering encouragement. Then the camera showed something that made Michael's hands clench around his phone. Mrs. Hartwell walked out of the school at 7 o'clock in the evening, darkness already fallen. January wind whipped around her thin coat, a coat that had seen better days, patched at the elbows. She walked to a bus stop and waited, stamping her feet against the cold. "Mrs. Hartwell takes 2 buses to get to school each morning," the reporter's voice explained. "She lives alone in a small house across town. Despite her age and modest salary, she continues to purchase classroom supplies with her own money and tutors students for free after school." The video ended with Mrs. Hartwell boarding the bus, finding a seat and closing her eyes as if exhausted beyond measure. Michael stared at the screen, emotions crashing through him like waves. Memories flooded back, memories he'd buried under years of success and celebrity. He was 15 again, sitting in an empty classroom, his world destroyed. He'd just been cut from the varsity basketball team. Cut. Rejected. Told he wasn't good enough. He'd wanted to quit everything: basketball, school, life. And Mrs. Hartwell had found him there. She hadn't offered empty words or false comfort. She'd sat down beside him and told him about her own failures, about losing her husband young, about struggling to raise 3 children alone, about wanting to be a writer but becoming a teacher instead because she needed to survive. "Michael," she'd said, her hand gentle on his shoulder, "greatness isn't about never falling. It's about what you build from the broken pieces." Those words had changed everything. When he'd wanted to give up, she'd shown him that pain could become power. When he'd felt worthless, she'd seen worth in him that nobody else could see, not even himself. And now, 35 years later, this woman who had saved his life was riding buses in the freezing cold at 85 years old. This woman who had given him hope was struggling just to get to school each day. This woman who had asked for nothing was still giving everything. Tears filled Michael's eyes. When was the last time he'd thought about Mrs. Hartwell? When was the last time he'd thanked her? When was the last time he'd even wondered if she was okay? He'd promised her once that he'd never forget where he came from. But he had forgotten. He'd gotten so caught up in building his empire that he'd forgotten the woman who'd laid the foundation. Michael picked up his office phone, his hand shaking. "Dana," he said to his assistant, his voice thick with emotion, "I need the fastest flight to North Carolina. Today. Right now." "Of course, Mr. Jordan. May I ask what this is regarding?" Michael wiped his eyes, staring at the frozen image of Mrs. Hartwell on his phone screen. "I need to see someone," he said quietly. "Someone I should have visited years ago. And Dana, don't tell anyone where I'm going. What I'm about to do, nobody can know. Not yet." He hung up and stood at his window, looking out at the city below. Somewhere in North Carolina, a woman who'd changed his life was still changing lives, still giving, still believing while the world passed her by without noticing. But Michael had noticed now, and he was going to make sure the world noticed too. What he was planning, what he was about to do, it would shock everyone. It would be bigger than any championship, any business deal, any achievement in his legendary career. Because some debts can never be repaid with money alone. Some heroes deserve more than a check. They deserve to finally see how many lives they've touched, how many futures they've shaped, how much they truly matter. Michael Jordan was about to make sure Eleanor Hartwell knew exactly what her life had meant. And nobody, not even Mrs. Hartwell herself, had any idea what was coming. The flight to North Carolina gave Michael 3 hours to remember. 3 hours to travel back to 1979, when he was just a skinny 15-year-old kid with a dream that had just been crushed. He closed his eyes in the private jet and let the memories wash over him. Laney High School, October. Michael Jordan walked through the halls with his head down, shoulders hunched forward like he was trying to disappear. The list had been posted that morning. The varsity basketball team roster. He'd checked it 3 times, running his finger down every single name, hoping he'd somehow missed his own. But it wasn't there. Good. He'd been cut. Coach Clifton Herring had chosen Leroy Smith instead, his friend, someone taller, more physically developed. The coach had pulled Michael aside afterward and said, "You're good, son, but you're just not ready yet. Try again next year." Not ready, not good enough, not tall enough, not strong enough. Just. The rejection burned through Michael's chest like fire. Basketball was everything to him. Without it, who was he? Just another kid from Winnington with nothing special, nothing that made him stand out, nothing that mattered. His feet carried him without thinking. He found himself in the English hallway at room 207. The door was open. Inside, a woman with silver-streaked hair sat at her desk, grading papers with careful attention. Mrs. Eleanor Hartwell. Michael had her class 3rd period. She was different from other teachers. She actually seemed to care whether students understood the material. She stayed late to help anyone who asked. She brought in books from her own collection for students who loved reading. Michael stumbled into the classroom and collapsed into a desk in the back row. He put his head down on his arms, trying to hold back the tears that threatened to spill over. He failed. The tears came hard and fast, his shoulders shaking. He couldn't stop them. All the disappointment, all the embarrassment, all the fear that maybe he really wasn't special at all, it poured out of him in silent sobs. He didn't hear Mrs. Hartwell approach. He only knew she was there when he felt a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Rough day?" she asked softly. Michael couldn't speak. He could barely breathe. He just nodded, keeping his face hidden. Mrs. Hartwell didn't rush him. She didn't offer cheap comfort or tell him everything would be fine. She simply pulled up a chair and sat beside him, her presence quiet and steady. When his tears finally slowed, she spoke. "Would you like to tell me about it?" Michael lifted his head. His eyes were red and swollen. "I got cut," he whispered, "from the basketball team. I practiced all summer. I worked so hard, but I wasn't good enough." Mrs. Hartwell nodded slowly. "That hurts. When we give everything we have and it still isn't enough. That's one of the hardest pains there is." "I don't know what to do now," Michael said, his voice cracking. "Basketball is everything to me. Without it, I'm nobody." Mrs. Hartwell leaned back in her chair, her eyes distant. "Let me tell you a story, Michael. When I was 23 years old, I wanted to be a writer. I'd written a novel, spent 2 years on it, poured my heart into every page. I sent it to 37 publishers." She paused, a sad smile crossing her face. "All 37 rejected it, every single one. They said it wasn't good enough, wasn't marketable, wasn't special." I was devastated. Writing was my dream, my identity, my everything. Without it, I didn't know who I was. Michael looked at her, surprised. He'd never thought of teachers as people with their own broken dreams. "What did you do?" he asked. "I cried for 3 days," Mrs. Hartwell said honestly. "Then I got angry. Then I made a choice. I decided that just because I couldn't be a published writer didn't mean words couldn't be my life. So I became an English teacher. I decided that if I couldn't create stories that changed the world, I'd help young people find the stories that would change them." She turned to face Michael directly, her eyes intense. 5 years later, my husband Thomas died in a factory accident. I had 3 small children and no money. I could have given up then. Lord knows I wanted to. But I remembered what I'd learned from that rejection. Life isn't about the doors that close, it's about what you build with the pieces that remain. Michael listened, his breathing steadier now. "Michael, I don't know if you'll make the basketball team next year or not," Mrs. Hartwell continued. "I don't know if you'll become a great player or just an average one. But I know this. Greatness isn't about never falling. It's about what you build from the broken pieces." She reached over and lifted his chin so he had to meet her eyes. "Right now, you feel broken. That's okay. Feel it. Let it hurt. But don't let it destroy you. Let it forge you into something stronger." Every person who ever became extraordinary had moments where they felt like nobody. The difference is what they did with that feeling. Something shifted inside Michael in that moment. The pain didn't disappear, but it changed shape. It became fuel instead of poison. "How?" he asked. "How do I do that?" Mrs. Hartwell smiled. "You take that anger, that disappointment, that fire burning in your chest, and you channel it. You practice harder than anyone else. You prove to yourself, not to Coach Herring, that you're capable of more than they saw. You let every doubt become a reason to push further." She stood up and walked to her bookshelf, pulling out a thin volume. She handed it to Michael. "Maya Angelou," she said. "Read Still I Rise. It's about refusing to let the world keep you down. It's about rising from every fall stronger than before." Michael took the book, his hands still shaking slightly. "Mrs. Hartwell," he said quietly, "thank you for not just telling me it'll be okay." "It will be okay, Michael," she said gently, "but not because the pain goes away, because you'll transform it into something beautiful. I see something in you, a fire, a determination. Don't let one coach's decision put that fire out. Feed it, let it grow." Over the following months, Mrs. Hartwell became Michael's anchor. He practiced basketball obsessively, often alone in the gym late into the evening. But his grades started slipping because he couldn't focus on anything except proving Coach Herring wrong. Mrs. Hartwell noticed. She always noticed. One afternoon in November, she asked him to stay after class. "Your last essay was brilliant, Michael," she said, holding up his paper. "But your test scores are dropping. What's happening?" Michael shrugged, embarrassed. "I can't concentrate. All I think about is basketball. I need to make that team next year. I have to." Mrs. Hartwell set down the paper and looked at him seriously. "Michael, listen carefully. You have fire in you. I see it burning. But fire without direction just destroys everything around it. You need to channel it, control it, use it wisely." "I don't understand," Michael said. "Obsession is good," Mrs. Hartwell explained. "Passion is good. But if you let them consume everything else, you'll burn out before you ever achieve your dream. You need balance. You need to feed your mind while you train your body." She pulled out a chair and sat down across from him. "Let me help you. Come here 3 days a week after school. We'll work on your assignments together. You'll keep your grades up, stay eligible for sports, and keep your mind sharp." Michael hesitated. "Why would you do that? You don't have to." Mrs. Hartwell's expression softened. "Michael, I've been teaching for 17 years. I've seen thousands of students walk through that door. Most of them I teach and they move on. But every once in a while, I see someone special, someone with a light inside them that could illuminate the whole world if they don't let life snuff it out first." She leaned forward. "You're one of those students. I don't know what you'll become. Maybe a basketball player, maybe something else entirely. But I know you have greatness in you, and I'll be damned if I let you waste it because you're too focused on one goal to see the bigger picture." Tears pricked Michael's eyes again, but this time they were different. They were tears of gratitude. "Okay," he whispered. "I'll come. Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," Mrs. Hartwell said with a small smile. "I'm a tough tutor. You're going to work harder in here than you do on that basketball court." She was right. 3 afternoons a week, Michael sat in room 27 while Mrs. Hartwell pushed him to think deeper, write better, analyze more carefully. She didn't just help him with homework. She taught him how to learn, how to push through frustration, how to see setbacks as opportunities. And she shared more of her own story. One rainy afternoon in January, while Michael struggled with an essay about perseverance, Mrs. Hartwell told him about her children. "My son Marcus wants to be a doctor," she said, her voice filled with pride and worry. "But we don't have money for medical school. My daughter Janine is brilliant with numbers, but college seems impossible. And my youngest, Thomas Jr. He's only 8, but he asks me questions I can't answer about why his daddy had to die." She looked out the rain-streaked window. "I teach all day, Michael. Then I clean offices at night. 3 different buildings, 5 nights a week. I sleep 4 hours if I'm lucky. I'm exhausted all the time. There are days I want to just..." Michael looked up from his paper, shocked. He'd never imagined Mrs. Hartwell cleaning offices, struggling, wanting to give up. "Why don't you?" he asked quietly. She turned back to him, and her eyes held something fierce and unbreakable. "Because my children are watching. Because my students are watching. Because if I give up, I'm teaching everyone around me that when life gets hard, you quit. And I refuse to teach that lesson." She walked over and sat on the edge of the desk beside him. "Michael, I'm telling you this not to make you feel sorry for me, but to show you something important. Everyone is fighting battles nobody sees. Everyone has reasons to give up, but the people who change the world? They're the ones who keep going anyway. They're the ones who transform their pain into purpose." Michael set down his pencil. "Is that what you did? Transformed your pain?" "I'm trying to," Mrs. Hartwell said honestly. "Every day I'm trying to. Some days I do better than others. But I decided years ago that if I couldn't have the life I dreamed of, I'd make sure other people could reach their dreams. Every student I help get to college, every young person I encourage when they're ready to quit. That's my purpose now." She placed a hand on Michael's shoulder. "You're going to face more rejection in your life, Michael. More disappointment, more pain. That's guaranteed. But you get to choose what you do with it. You can let it make you bitter, or you can let it make you better." Michael looked down at his essay. The title was Overcoming Obstacles. He'd written 3 paragraphs about making the basketball team next year. He picked up his pencil and started over. This time he wrote about Mrs. Hartwell. Michael opened his eyes as the plane began its descent into Wilmington. His face was wet with tears. He hadn't realized he was crying. Mrs. Hartwell had saved his life, not with grand gestures or expensive gifts, but with presence, with truth, with the simple act of seeing him when he felt invisible. And he'd repaid her by forgetting she existed. The plane touched down. Michael wiped his eyes and stood up, his jaw set with determination. That was about to change. Everything was about to change. Because Michael Jordan had learned long ago that greatness isn't about never falling, it's about what you build from the broken pieces. And he was about to build something that would show the world what true greatness looked like. Michael Jordan stepped off the plane into the cool North Carolina morning. He wore a plain baseball cap, pulled low over his eyes, dark sunglasses, and a simple jacket, nothing that would draw attention. His security team, Marcus and David, followed close behind, confused but professional. "Mr. Jordan," Marcus said quietly as they walked toward the rental car area, "can you at least tell us what we're doing here? We've been instructed to keep this trip completely secret." "That's unusual." Michael didn't answer right away. He climbed into the driver's seat of the rented gray sedan. He'd insisted on driving himself and waited for his team to get in. "We're observing," he finally said. "Just watching. Nobody approaches anyone. Nobody speaks to anyone. We stay invisible. Understood?" Marcus and David exchanged glances but nodded. "Understood, sir." Michael drove through Wilmington as dawn broke over the city. Everything looked different than he remembered, yet somehow the same. New buildings stood where old ones had been. Streets had been repaved, but the bones of the city, his city, remained. He pulled into a coffee shop parking lot 3 blocks from Laney High School and checked his watch. 6:15 in the morning. According to the news report, Mrs. Hartwell caught the bus at 6:30. His heart pounded as he drove to the bus stop shown in the video. He parked across the street, engine running. Wait. At 6:28, a figure appeared at the corner. Mrs. Eleanor Hartwell walked slowly down the sidewalk, her gait careful and measured. She wore a long coat that had seen many winters, a knit scarf wrapped around her neck, and sensible shoes that had been resoled multiple times. She carried a large bag over one shoulder, undoubtedly filled with papers, paids, grade, and books for her students. Michael's hands gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. She looked so small, so fragile. This woman who had seemed like a giant to him 35 years ago now appeared delicate, vulnerable, aged beyond her years by decades of giving everything she had. The bus pulled up. Mrs. Hartwell climbed the steps slowly, pausing on each one. Michael watched her show her bus pass, find a seat near the front, and close her eyes as the bus pulled away. He followed at a distance. The bus wound through Wilmington, stopping every few blocks. Working people climbed on. Janitors, nurses ending night shifts, kitchen workers heading to restaurants. People who kept the world running while the world barely noticed them. Just like Mrs. Hartwell. After 20 minutes, the bus stopped near downtown. Mrs. Hartwell got off and walked 2 blocks to another bus stop. She waited in the cold wind for 12 minutes before the second bus arrived. Michael sat in his car watching, his throat tight with emotion. This woman, this hero, was making this journey every single day. 2 buses, 90 minutes total. Standing in the cold, all to reach a job that paid her barely enough to survive. The second bus finally arrived. Mrs. Hartwell climbed aboard, and Michael followed again. When the bus stopped near Laney High School at 7:45, Michael was already parked in the school lot. He'd driven ahead and found a spot with a clear view of the entrance. Mrs. Hartwell stepped off the bus and began the walk to the school. She moved slowly, her bag heavy on her shoulder. Twice she stopped to rest, breathing hard in the cold morning air. Michael wanted to jump out of the car, run to her, carry her bag, drive her to the door, but he forced himself to stay still. He needed to see everything. He needed to understand her daily reality before he acted. A group of students rushed past Mrs. Hartwell, laughing and talking, barely noticing her. One boy bumped into her, nearly knocking her over. He called a quick sorry over his shoulder, but didn't stop. Mrs. Hartwell steadied herself against a railing and continued walking. At the school steps, she paused. The stairs looked steep. Maybe they'd always been that way, but for an 85-year-old woman they might as well have been a mountain. She climbed them one at a time, gripping the railing, stopping twice to catch her breath. Michael felt tears burning his eyes again. "This is wrong," he whispered. "This is so..." David leaned forward from the back seat. "Sir, what's wrong?" Michael pointed at Mrs. Hartwell, who had finally reached the top of the stairs and was walking through the front doors. "That woman is a hero," Michael said, his voice shaking. "She's one of the greatest people I've ever known, and she's riding 2 buses at 85 years old just to keep teaching. While I'm flying around in private jets, while I'm spending more on a single dinner than she makes in a month, while I forgot she even existed." He turned to face his security team. "I need you to help me. Nobody can know I'm here. Nobody can know what we're doing. Can I trust you both?" Marcus nodded immediately. "Always, Mr. Jordan." "What do you need?" David asked. Michael looked back at the school. "I need to see her day. Everything. How she teaches, where she eats lunch, when she leaves, where she goes. I need to understand her life completely before I can change it." He spent the next 8 hours becoming invisible. Using his security team's connections, Michael gained access to the school as a temporary maintenance worker. Nobody questioned the man in coveralls pushing a mop through the halls. They were too busy with their own responsibilities to notice him. Michael cleaned floors he didn't need to clean. He emptied trash cans that were already empty. And at 8:30, he positioned himself near room 247. Through the small window in the door, he could see Mrs. Hartwell's classroom. 30 students sat in rows of desks. Mrs. Hartwell stood at the front, writing on the whiteboard, her handwriting still clear and precise despite her age. Michael couldn't hear through the door, but he could see students leaning forward, paying attention. One girl raised her hand eagerly. Mrs. Hartwell called on her, listened carefully to whatever the girl said, and smiled, a smile that seemed to light up her entire face. She still loved it. After 63 years, she still loved teaching. At 9:15, Michael moved to a position where he could hear through the slightly open door. "Who can tell me what Langston Hughes meant by a dream deferred?" Mrs. Hartwell was asking. A boy in the back raised his hand tentatively. Is it like when you want something but you can't have it? Yes, Mrs. Hartwell's voice was warm with encouragement. Exactly right, Tyrrell. And what happens to that dream? What does Hughes suggest? Another student spoke up. It dries up like a raisin in the sun? Yes. And why is that image so powerful? The discussion continued, and Michael found himself transfixed. Mrs. Hartwell wasn't just teaching poetry, she was teaching students to think, to question, to see themselves in literature. She was doing exactly what she'd done for him 35 years ago, showing young people that their stories mattered. Between classes, Michael watched students linger at her desk. A girl showed Mrs. Hartwell photos on her phone, probably a boyfriend or a family event. Mrs. Hartwell looked at each photo carefully, asking questions, showing genuine interest. A boy approached nervously, holding a paper. Michael couldn't hear the conversation, but he saw Mrs. Hartwell's face shift from concern to compassion. She put her hand on the boy's shoulder, spoke to him for several minutes, then wrote something on a piece of paper and handed it to him. The boy's shoulders relaxed. He smiled, just a little, and walked away looking less burdened. At lunchtime, Michael followed at a distance as Mrs. Hartwell walked to the teacher's lounge. She carried a small brown bag from her desk, but she didn't stay in the lounge. After greeting a few other teachers, she returned to her classroom and ate alone at her desk while grading papers. Michael positioned himself where he could see through the door. Mrs. Hartwell pulled out a sandwich, peanut butter and jelly from the looks of it, and ate it in small bites while marking up student essays with her red pen. She didn't scroll through her phone, she didn't take a break, she just ate and worked. Michael thought about his own lunches, catered meals, expensive restaurants, elaborate spreads at business meetings. He'd probably thrown away more food in the past month than Mrs. Hartwell had eaten. At 12:45, a knock came at Mrs. Hartwell's door. The young girl peeked in, looking nervous. Mrs. Hartwell? Do you have time to... I know it's lunch, but... Mrs. Hartwell immediately set down her pen and smiled. Of course, Destiny. Come in, sweetheart. Sit down. The girl entered and sat in a desk near Mrs. Hartwell. Michael couldn't hear everything, but he caught fragments. Didn't understand the assignment. Okay, let's look at it together. You're doing better than you think. They worked together for 20 minutes. Mrs. Hartwell never once looked at her watch or showed any sign of impatience. When the girl finally understood, her face lit up with joy. Thank you, Mrs. Hartwell, you're the best. You did the work, honey. I just helped you see what was already inside you. Michael had to turn away. His chest felt too tight. The afternoon continued in the same pattern. Mrs. Hartwell taught 3 more classes with the same energy and passion she'd shown in the morning. She never sat down except between classes. She never complained. She smiled at every student who walked through her door. At 3:30, school ended. Teachers began leaving, climbing into their cars, heading home to their families and their evening plans. Mrs. Hartwell stayed. At 4 o'clock, students began arriving at her classroom. Michael counted 6 of them, teenagers who clearly struggled academically, who needed extra help, who couldn't afford tutors. Mrs. Hartwell worked with each one individually, moving from desk to desk, explaining concepts, encouraging, praising every small success. At 5:30, one student's phone rang. Michael heard the boy say, "Yeah, Mom, I'm still at tutoring. Mrs. Hartwell is helping me. I'll catch the late bus." Tutoring. Free tutoring. Mrs. Hartwell was giving away hours of her time, hours she could be resting, recovering from a full day of teaching. At 6:45, the last student finally left. "Thank you, Mrs. Hartwell," the girl called as she rushed out. "I think I'm actually gonna pass this test." "You're going to do more than pass," Mrs. Hartwell called back. "You're going to excel." Alone in her classroom, Mrs. Hartwell sank into her chair. For the first time all day, Michael saw exhaustion on her face. Her shoulders slumped. She closed her eyes and rubbed her temples. She sat there for 5 minutes, just breathing. Then she stood up, gathered her papers into her bag, turned off the lights, and headed out. Michael followed her through the empty halls. She moved even more slowly now, one hand on the wall occasionally for support. Outside, darkness had fallen. The temperature had dropped. Mrs. Hartwell pulled her thin coat tighter around her body and began walking toward the bus stop. Michael returned to his car and followed the bus route again. He watched her make the same 90-minute journey in reverse. 2 buses, long waits in the cold, walking the final 3 blocks to her house. Her neighborhood made Michael's heart sink further. Small houses, many in disrepair, chain-link fences, flickering streetlights. This was where she came home every night after giving everything she had. Mrs. Hartwell's house was tiny, maybe 900 square feet. The paint was peeling. One shutter hung crooked. The front steps were cracked, and she had to hold the railing carefully as she climbed them. She unlocked her door and disappeared inside. A light came on in what must have been the living room. Michael sat in his car staring at that house, emotions warring inside him. This woman had saved his life. She had seen greatness in him when he was nothing but a heartbroken kid who'd been cut from a team. She had given him hope, purpose, direction. And while he'd built an empire worth billions, she was here, in a crumbling house, taking buses, eating peanut butter sandwiches, still giving, still loving, still. Marcus cleared his throat from the passenger seat. "Sir, what now?" Michael didn't answer for a long time. Finally, he started the car. "Now," he said quietly, "we make this right, but not with just money. Not with a simple check or a donation. This has to be bigger than that. It has to honor everything she is, everything she's done, everything she represents." He pulled away from the curb, his mind already working. "I need you to make calls. I need lawyers, event planners, investigators, construction people. I need them all in Winnington by tomorrow, and I need absolute secrecy. Nobody knows I'm here. Nobody knows what we're planning." "What are we planning, sir?" David asked from the back seat. Michael smiled, the first real smile he'd felt in days. "We're planning something that's going to change everything. Not just for Mrs. Hartwell, but for every teacher like her. Every hero nobody sees. Every person who gives their whole life to lifting others up." He thought about Mrs. Hartwell's words from so long ago. Greatness isn't about never falling. It's about what you build from the broken pieces. I'm going to build something beautiful from the broken pieces of a world that forgets its heroes, Michael said. And when I'm done, Mrs. Eleanor Hartwell is going to know, finally know, that her life mattered, that every sacrifice meant something, that every student she saved remembers. He paused, his voice catching. "That I remember." Michael Jordan didn't sleep that night. He sat in his hotel room with his laptop, a notepad, and a phone that wouldn't stop ringing as his team assembled. By midnight, 5 people sat around the table in his suite. Dana Chen, his personal assistant Robert Martinez, his lawyer Jennifer Williams, a private investigator, Marcus and David from security. "I need to know everything," Michael told them. "Everything about Eleanor Hartwell's life. Her finances, her family, her history. Every student she's helped. Every sacrifice she's made. I want a complete picture." Jennifer opened her laptop. "I'll start with public records and work backward. Give me 48 hours. "You have 24, Michael said. "We don't have time to waste." Robert leaned forward. "Michael, what exactly are we building toward here? I need to understand the goal to structure this properly." Michael stood and walked to the window, looking out at the sleeping city. When I was 15 years old, I was nobody. Worse than nobody, I was a failure. I'd been cut from my basketball team, and I wanted to quit everything. Mrs. Hartwell found me crying in her classroom. She didn't just comfort me, she shared her own failures. She showed me that pain could become power. He turned back to face his team. That conversation changed my entire life. Without it, there's no Michael Jordan, the basketball player. There's no championships, no brand, no empire. There's just a kid who gave up on his dreams. She saved me, and I forgot about her. His voice grew stronger. But worse than that, the world forgot about her. She's been teaching for 63 years. 63 years. She's helped thousands of students, given away money she doesn't have, tutored for free, stayed late every single day. And what does she get? A salary that barely covers her bills, a house that's falling apart, 2 bus rides in the freezing cold at 85 years old. Dana was taking notes furiously. So you want to help her financially? That's just the beginning, Michael said. Anyone can write a check. I want to do something that shows every teacher in America, every person who gives their life to others, that they matter, that they're seen, that their work is the most important work in the world. He sat back down, his eyes intense. I'm going to throw an event. Valentine's Day, that's 10 days from now. We're going to bring together everyone Mrs. Hartwell has ever helped. We're going to show her the impact of her life, and we're going to announce something that will change how America treats its teachers forever. Jennifer looked up from her laptop. I'm already finding interesting information. Give me a few hours and I'll have a preliminary report. Good, Michael said. The rest of you, here's what I need. He spent the next hour delegating tasks. Robert would handle legal structures and non-profit paperwork. Dana would coordinate logistics and begin secretly contacting people. Marcus and David would maintain security and secrecy. By 2 in the morning, everyone had their assignments. Michael sat alone, staring at his notepad where he'd written one sentence over and over. Make sure she knows she matters. The next morning, Jennifer knocked on Michael's door at 7 o'clock. She carried a thick folder and looked like she hadn't slept either. You need to see this, she said, spreading papers across the table. Michael sat down, coffee in hand, and began reading. Eleanor May Hartwell, born March 15, 1940, in Ruleville, Mississippi. Jennifer pointed to the first document. She grew up in poverty. Her father was a sharecropper. Her mother cleaned houses. But Eleanor was brilliant. She tested into gifted programs, won a scholarship to Mississippi State, graduated top of her class during the Civil Rights Movement, Michael noted. Exactly. She was one of the first black women to graduate from that program. Faced incredible discrimination but pushed through. Jennifer flipped to the next section. She married Thomas Hartwell in 1963. He worked at a textile factory. They had 3 children. Marcus in 1960. Michael studied the old photographs, a young Eleanor with her husband both smiling, full of hope. Thomas died in 1971, Jennifer continued. Factory accident. Eleanor was 31 years old with 3 kids under 7. No life insurance. The company fought the claim. She was left with nothing. Michael's jaw tightened. That's when she started teaching at Laney High School. Her salary in 1971 was $4,000 a year. She took a second job cleaning offices at night. According to people I interviewed, she worked from 7 in the morning until midnight most days. For how long? Michael asked. 15 years. Until her youngest child graduated high school. She put all 3 kids through college on that salary plus cleaning jobs. Marcus became a doctor. Janine became a social worker. Thomas Jr. joined the military. Jennifer's voice softened. Thomas Jr. was killed in Iraq in 2004. IED explosion. Eleanor was 64 years old. According to school records, she took 2 weeks off, the only extended time she's ever missed, and then came back to teach. Michael had to look away. Jennifer continued. Here's where it gets harder. Current financial situation. She makes $52,000 annually. Sounds decent until you look at her expenses. She spread out more documents. Medical bills from pneumonia last year, $38,000. Her insurance denied most of it, claimed it was a pre-existing condition because she'd had bronchitis years ago. She's been making minimum payments, but the debt keeps growing with interest. Her house? Michael asked, though he already knew the answer would be bad. Bought it in 1975 for $18,000. It's paid off, but it needs major repairs she can't afford. New roof, $12,000. Electrical system, $8,000. Plumbing, $6,000. The property taxes have tripled in the last 10 years, and Jennifer pulled out a red-stamped document. She's in foreclosure. The bank is taking the house in 30 days. She's 3 months behind on property taxes, $7,000. With penalties and fees, she needs $9,000 to stop the foreclosure. Michael's hands clenched into fists. She hasn't told anyone, Jennifer added. Not her kids, not her friends, not the school. She's trying to handle it alone. Why? Michael asked. Why wouldn't she ask for help? Jennifer smiled sadly. I asked her daughter Janine that same question, called her last night, told her I was doing a profile on dedicated teachers. Janine said, my mother has spent her entire life helping other people. She doesn't know how to ask for help herself. She'd rather lose everything than burden anyone. Michael stood and paced the room. What about her kids? Can't they help? They want to, but Marcus is helping put his own 3 kids through college. Janine is a social worker. She makes $35,000 a year and supports her elderly mother-in-law. They send what they can, but it's not enough. Jennifer flipped to another section. Now here's the beautiful part. Want to know what Mrs. Hartwell did with the little money she had? She pulled out bank statements. Information that must have required significant investigation skills to obtain. In the last 5 years, she's given away over $15,000 to students. For lunch money, school supplies, prom dresses, AP test fees, college application costs. She's paid for groceries for families facing eviction. She bought a student a winter coat. She helped pay for a student's mother's cancer medication. Jennifer looked up at Michael. She's drowning in debt and losing her house, but she's still giving away money because that's who she is. Michael had to sit down. The weight of it, the sheer injustice of it, crushed against his chest. Keep going, he said quietly. Jennifer pulled out her laptop. I started reaching out to former students, asked people to share stories about Mrs. Hartwell. I've received over 200 responses in 12 hours. Want to hear? She didn't wait for an answer. Judge Marcus Williams, he's on the state Supreme Court now. He says Mrs. Hartwell tutored him for free 3 times a week for 2 years. His family couldn't afford help. Without her, he wouldn't have gotten into college. He wouldn't be a judge. She scrolled. Dr. Patricia Reeves, neurosurgeon in Atlanta. She says Mrs. Hartwell gave her $40 for an SAT study book. When Patricia's mother was choosing between the book and groceries, Mrs. Hartwell told her, "You're going to be a doctor someday. This is an investment in the future." Sergeant James Cooper served 3 tours in Iraq. He says Mrs. Hartwell wrote him letters every single week during his deployments, kept him sane, kept him human. He still has every letter, 341 of them. Jennifer's voice grew thick with emotion. Angela Martinez, single mother of 2. She says Mrs. Hartwell babysits her kids twice a week for free so Angela can work night shifts at the hospital. Has been doing it for 3 years. won't accept payment. Darnell Thompson now owns a construction company. He says Mrs. Hartwell paid his electricity bill when he was 18 and living alone because his parents had kicked him out. $200 she didn't have. He started crying on the phone when he told me, said he's never forgotten. Story after story. Sacrifice after sacrifice. A lifetime of giving. Jennifer looked at Michael. She's touched thousands of lives. Most of them don't even know the extent of what she did. She helps people secretly, never seeking recognition. Michael rubbed his eyes. What else? A daily routine. You saw it yesterday. 2 buses, each way, 90 minutes. She's been doing that for 5 years, since her car died, and she couldn't afford to fix it. Before that, she drove a 1997 Honda with 200,000 miles on it. Jennifer pulled up more notes. She eats the same lunch every day, peanut butter and jelly sandwich she makes at home. Brings it in a paper bag she reuses. Doesn't buy lunch at school because it costs $5 and she'd rather save that money for students who can't afford lunch. She tutors for free every single day after school. Has been doing it for 40 years. The school district estimates she's given away 30,000 hours of free tutoring. At minimum wage, that's over $200,000 of labor she gave for free. Michael did the math in his head. $200,000 given away in time alone, plus $15,000 in direct financial help, plus countless acts of kindness. Nobody tracked or measured help. Plus countless acts of kindness. Nobody tracked or measured. What about awards? He asked. Recognition? Jennifer laughed bitterly. Teacher of the Year at Laney High School 3 times. Got a plaque each time. County Teacher of the Year once in 1998. Got a certificate and a $50 gift card to a restaurant. That's it? In 63 years? That's it. She's not good at self-promotion. She doesn't attend education conferences or network with administrators. She just shows up every day and does the work. The world doesn't reward people like that. Michael stood again and walked to the window. The sun was rising over Wilmington. Somewhere out there, Mrs. Hartwell was already on her first bus, heading to school, ready to give another day of her life to students who might never know how much she sacrificed. We're going to change that, Michael said. Dana appeared from the adjoining room where she'd been making calls. I need you to find every single person Jennifer has identified. Every former student. Every person Mrs. Hartwell has helped. I want them at Laney High School on Valentine's Day. I don't care where they live or what it costs. Fly them in. Put them up in hotels. Pay for everything. On it, Dana said, already typing on her phone. Robert, his lawyer, appeared. I need a non-profit structure established immediately. The Eleanor Hartwell Foundation for Teachers. I'm funding it with $100 million to start. Robert's eyes widened, but he simply nodded. I'll have papers ready by tomorrow. Jennifer, keep digging. I want to know everything, every person she helped. Every sacrifice she made. Every moment that shows who she really is. Michael turned to face his team. In 10 days, we're going to show Mrs. Eleanor Hartwell what her life has meant. We're going to bring together every person she saved. We're going to eliminate her debts, save her house, and give her the recognition she deserves. But most importantly, his voice caught with emotion. We're going to make sure she knows, really knows deep in her soul, that every sacrifice mattered. That every student she helped remembers. That she didn't give her whole life in vain. Dana looked up from her phone. Michael, I have to ask, why Valentine's Day? Why that specific day? Michael smiled sadly. Because Valentine's Day is about love. And what Mrs. Hartwell has shown for 63 years is the purest form of love there is. Love that expects nothing in return. Love that gives until there's nothing left to give. Love that sees worth in people when they can't see it themselves. He paused. The world celebrates romantic love on Valentine's Day. This year, we're going to show them what real love looks like. The room was silent for a moment. Then Dana smiled. Let's do it. Jennifer closed her laptop. I'll get you everything you need. Robert nodded. This is the best thing I've ever worked on. Marcus spoke up from the corner. Sir, this is going to be the most meaningful thing you've ever done. More than any championship. Michael looked at each of them. It has to be. Because some debts can never be fully repaid, but they can be honored. They can be celebrated. They can be shouted from the rooftops until the whole world hears. He picked up his phone. Now let's get to work. We have 10 days to pull off a miracle. Over the next 72 hours, Michael Jordan's team worked like they were preparing for the biggest game of his career. Except this time, the victory wouldn't be measured in points, it would be measured in tears, in gratitude, in the moment when a forgotten hero finally saw her worth. Dana Chen sat in her hotel room with 3 phones and a laptop, making call after call. Hello, is this Judge Marcus Williams? My name is Dana Chen, and I'm calling on behalf of someone who would like to invite you to a very special event. Each conversation followed a similar pattern. Shock, disbelief, questions about whether this was real, and then, almost always, cry. Mrs. Hartwell saved my life, people said. Over and over. Different words, same meaning. By the end of day 2, Dana had contacted 87 former students. 84 said yes immediately. 2 needed to rearrange schedules but promised to make it work. 1 was overseas in the military but was arranging emergency leave. Not a single person said no. Meanwhile, Robert worked with a team of attorneys to establish the foundation structure. He drafted documents late into the night, ensuring everything was legal, airtight and ready to launch. Jennifer continued her investigation, uncovering story after story. She created a presentation, a video that would make even the hardest heart break open. And Michael visited Laney High School again. This time he didn't disguise himself as a maintenance worker. He arranged a private meeting with Principal Raymond Foster, swearing him to absolute secrecy. Dr. Foster, a tall man in his 50s with graying hair and kind eyes, sat across from Michael in his office, still looking stunned. Michael Jordan, he kept saying. I'm sitting here talking to Michael Jordan about one of my teachers. Tell me about her, Michael said. Tell me what she means to this school. Dr. Foster leaned back in his chair, a smile crossing his face. Mrs. Hartwell is the heart of this place. She's been here longer than anyone, longer than most of us have been alive. When I became principal 3 years ago, I spent my first week just watching teachers, seeing who really cared, who was coasting, who was making a difference. He shook his head in wonder. Mrs. Hartwell was here before I arrived each morning. She stayed after I left each evening. I watched her spend her lunch period helping students. I watched her buy school supplies with her own money. I watched her hug crying teenagers and tell them they mattered. I called her into my office after that first week. I said, Mrs. Hartwell, you're 82 years old. She was 82 then. Why are you still doing this? You could retire. You've earned your rest. You know what she told me? Michael leaned forward. What? She said, Dr. Foster, I'll rest when I'm dead. Right now, there are children who need to know someone believes in them. How can I rest when there's still work to do? Dr. Foster's eyes grew moist. I've tried to help her. I've written letters to the district recommending bonuses, special recognition, salary increases. But the district has budget constraints. There's only so much I can do within the system. It kills me that she's struggling. She won't accept help. I've offered to drive her to school, offered to help with expenses. She always says no. Why? Michael asked. pride, I think. Not the bad kind, the kind that says, I've been taking care of myself my whole life. I'm not going to be a burden now. The kind that gives to others but won't receive. Dr. Foster looked directly at Michael. Whatever you're planning, Mr. Jordan, please make it meaningful. Don't just throw money at her. She needs to see that her life mattered. That all those years of sacrifice meant something. That people remember. Michael nodded slowly. That's exactly what I'm planning. But I need your help. They spent the next hour planning. Dr. Foster would arrange a special assembly for Valentine's Day without telling Mrs. Hartwell the real reason. He'd coordinate with staff, manage the logistics, ensure everything ran smoothly. One more thing, Michael said as he stood to leave. I want to talk to some of her current students. Quietly, without her knowing. Dr. Foster smiled. I think I can arrange that. That afternoon, Michael sat in an empty classroom with 6 of Mrs. Hartwell's current students. They ranged from freshmen to seniors, all looking nervous about being pulled from class to meet with a stranger. Then Marcus, who'd been standing by the door, whispered something to them. Michael watched their eyes go wide. You're Michael Jordan? A girl named Destiny gasped. Michael smiled. I am, but I'm not here to talk about basketball. I'm here to talk about Mrs. Hartwell. I need to understand what she means to you, and I need you to keep this conversation completely secret. Can you do that? 6 heads nodded vigorously. Good, so tell me, what's Mrs. Hartwell like as a teacher? For a moment, nobody spoke. Then a boy named Terrell raised his hand hesitantly, as if still in class. You don't have to raise your hand, Michael said gently. Just talk to me. Terrell lowered his hand. Mrs. Hartwell she's different from other teachers. Like most teachers just want you to memorize stuff and pass tests. But Mrs. Hartwell actually cares if you understand. If you learn. If you're okay. A girl named Ashley jumped in. She stays after school every day to help us. For free. My mum can't afford a tutor, but Mrs. Hartwell tutors me in English and reading. I was failing last semester. Now I have She gave me lunch money, Destiny said quietly. Like, multiple times. My dad lost his job, and we didn't have much food at home. I was embarrassed to tell anyone. But Mrs. Hartwell noticed I wasn't eating. She quietly gave me $10 and said, make sure you eat something healthy, sweetheart. She did that for 2 weeks until my dad found work again. Michael felt his throat tighten. A boy named Marcus, different from Michael's security guard, spoke up. My parents are going through a divorce. It's really bad. I was crying in the hallway one day, and Mrs. Hartwell she took me to a classroom and just listened. For like an hour, she didn't try to fix it or tell me it would be okay. She just listened. Then she told me about when her husband died and how hard that was. It made me feel less alone. She helped me with my college essay, a senior named Jamal said. Stayed after school 3 days in a row. Working with me. She told me I was smart enough for any college in the country. Nobody ever told me that before. I applied to Duke because of her. I got in. His voice cracked. I got in because she believed in me. The last student, a quiet girl named Rosa, finally spoke. Mrs. Hartwell is old, you know. Like really old. She moves slow. Sometimes she has to sit down because her legs hurt. But she never complains. Never says she's too tired. Never makes you feel like you're bothering her. Rosa looked at Michael with tears in her eyes. Last week I saw her in the parking lot after school. It was raining and cold. She was waiting for the bus and she looked so tired. I wanted to help her, but I'm just a kid. I don't have a car or money. I felt so bad. She does so much for us, and we can't do anything for her. Michael had to look away for a moment. You can do something, he said finally. You can be at school on Valentine's Day. Can you all do that? We're always at school, Terrell said, confused. No, I mean really be there. Present. Ready for something special. And you have to keep this secret. Don't tell Mrs. Hartwell anything. Can you do that? What's happening on Valentine's Day? Ashley asked. Michael smiled. Something that's going to change everything. Something that will show Mrs. Hartwell what her life has meant. Will you help me? 6 voices answered at once. Yes. That evening, Michael sat in his hotel room reviewing the presentation Jennifer had created. The video began with a photograph of young Eleanor Hartwell on her wedding day. Beautiful, smiling, full of hope. Then it showed her teaching her first class in 1962. Standing at a chalkboard, her handwriting perfect. Students looking up at her with attention. Photographs followed. Eleanor with her 3 children. Eleanor at Thomas's funeral, her face a mask of grief. Eleanor back in the classroom 2 weeks later, teaching through her pain. Eleanor in the 1980s, still teaching. The 1990s, the 2000s, decades flowing past, her hair turning grey then white, her face aging, but her passion never dimming. The video showed awards she'd received, small plaques, certificates, tokens that meant little but represented everything. Then came the testimonials. Jennifer had recorded phone interviews with former students. Their voices played over images of Mrs. Hartwell teaching. She saved my life when I wanted to end it. She believed in me when nobody else did. She gave me money she didn't have because she knew I needed it. She wrote me letters every week for 3 years while I was deployed. She's the reason I'm a doctor today. She's the reason I didn't give up. She's the reason I believed I was worth something. Voice after voice, story after story, a lifetime of impact condensed into 15 minutes of pure emotion. The video ended with recent footage of Mrs. Hartwell walking slowly up the school steps, teaching with passion despite her exhaustion, waiting for the bus in the cold. The final image was her face in the classroom, looking at a student with such love and belief that it radiated from the screen. Text appeared: Eleanor Hartwell, 63 years, 10,000 pews signed, countless lives changed, never seeking recognition, always giving, always believing, always loving. Michael watched it 3 times. He cried every time. Dana knocked on his door at 9 o'clock. "We have a problem," she said. Michael's stomach dropped. "What kind of problem?" "Not a bad problem. A good problem. Word is spreading, quietly but spreading. I've had 17 media outlets contact me asking what you're doing in Willington. Someone saw you at the school. They're getting curious." Michael thought for a moment. "Good. Tell them I'm making an announcement on Valentine's Day at Laney High School. Special event. They're invited. But give them no details. Let them speculate." Dana smiled. "That'll drive them crazy." "I know. But it'll also ensure the whole world is watching. And when the world sees what I'm about to show them, when they see Mrs. Hartwell and hear her story, maybe it'll change we think about teachers, about heroes, about who really matters in this country." He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. "How many people have we confirmed for the event?" 93 former students, her 2 living children and 7 grandchildren, 12 current teachers from Laney who want to honor her. The superintendent of schools, the mayor, the governor, is sending a representative. And Dana paused for effect. 6 NBA players, your old teammates and friends. They all said yes immediately, plus 3 musicians who want to perform, plus a senator who was Mrs. Hartwell's student. Michael turned, eyebrows raised. "A senator? Senator Patricia Coleman. She says Mrs. Hartwell taught her to believe a poor black girl from North Carolina could change the world. She credits Mrs. Hartwell for her entire career. Michael felt chills run down his spine. "This is bigger than I imagined," he said softly. "It's bigger than all of us," Dania agreed. "Because Mrs. Hartwell's story isn't just her story. It's the story of every teacher who gives everything and gets nothing. Every person who loves without expecting love in return. Every hero the world forgets." She handed Michael a folder. "These are the final plans. The event runs from 9 a.m. to noon. We have the gymnasium set up with a stage, video screens, sound system. Former students will share testimonials. You'll make the announcement about the foundation. And then," she smiled mysteriously, "then comes the surprise ending. The thing nobody expects. The moment that will change Mrs. Hartwell's life forever." Michael took the folder, but didn't open it. "Dana, do you think this will work? Do you think she'll understand what we're trying to say?" Dana's eyes grew soft. "Michael, I've spent 3 days calling people whose lives Mrs. Hartwell touched. I've heard grown men cry talking about her. I've heard women say she's the reason they're alive. This will work because it's true. Because every word, every testimony, every tear, it's all real." She put her hand on his arm. "She'll understand. And maybe for the first time in her life, Eleanor Hartwell will feel truly seen." Michael nodded, emotion thick in his throat. 5 days left until Valentine's Day. 5 days until the world discovered what real greatness looked like. 5 days until a forgotten hero finally came home. With 5 days left, Wilmington began to transform in ways nobody quite understood. Hotel rooms filled with mysterious guests. Production trucks arrived at Laney High School after hours. Workers moved equipment through back entrances when students had gone home. The local news noticed. "Something big is happening at Laney High School," a reporter said on the evening broadcast. Sources confirmed that Michael Jordan has been spotted in Wilmington, though his representatives refused to comment. "Is he buying property? Starting a business? We'll keep investigating." Michael watched the news from his hotel room and smiled. Let them wonder. The truth was more beautiful than any speculation. Dr. Foster called an emergency staff meeting on Monday morning before school started. 23 teachers crowded into the library, confused and curious. "I need your help with something," Dr. Foster said, "and I need absolute secrecy. Can everyone agree to that?" The teachers nodded, exchanging puzzled glances. "On Friday, Valentine's Day, we're hosting a special assembly. Mrs. Hartwell thinks it's a standard school event about Black History Month. She has no idea what's really happening." He pulled down a projection screen and pressed play on his laptop. The teachers watched Jennifer's video, the story of Eleanor Hartwell's 63 years of service, the sacrifices, the lives changed. By the end, nearly every teacher was crying. "Michael Jordan is organizing this," Dr. Foster explained. "He was Mrs. Hartwell's student in the late 70s. She changed his life, and now he wants to honor her. But more than that, he wants to show the world what teachers like her mean. What you all mean." A young teacher named Maria raised her hand. "What do you need from us?" "Friday morning, we need you to get every student into the gymnasium by 9 o'clock. Mrs. Hartwell will be brought in, thinking she's just attending a routine assembly. The rest, well, you'll see, but I promise you, it will be the most meaningful thing you've ever witnessed." An older teacher, Mr. Raymond, who'd worked with Mrs. Hartwell for 30 years, spoke up. "That woman has been the soul of this school for longer than most of us have been alive. Whatever you're planning, count me in completely." The other teachers echoed his sentiment. "One more thing," Dr. Foster added. "Mrs. Hartwell cannot suspect anything. Act normal this week. Don't treat her differently. Don't hint at what's coming. Can you do that?" "It's going to be hard," Maria said, wiping her eyes, "knowing what's coming and having to pretend everything is normal." "I know," Dr. Foster said, "but it's for her. She deserves this surprise. She deserves to walk into that gymnasium with no idea that her entire life is about to be celebrated. Meanwhile, Michael's team worked around the clock. Construction crews transformed the gymnasium after midnight each night, then cleared evidence before dawn. A stage was built at center court. Professional lighting was installed. Massive video screens were mounted on either side. Sound equipment worthy of a concert filled the space. By Wednesday morning, the gymnasium looked like it was ready for a major television production, which in a way, it was. Every major news network had requested access. Michael stood in the empty gym at 3 o'clock Wednesday morning, imagining what it would look like, filled with people, filled with love. "Second thoughts?" Robert asked, walking up beside him. "No," Michael said. "I'm just thinking about her face. When she walks in here on Friday and sees what we've done, what everyone has done, do you think her heart can handle it? She's 85 years old." Robert smiled. "Her heart has been handling impossible things her whole life. It'll handle this too. The foundation paperwork is ready, all filed. The Eleanor Hartwell Foundation for Teachers is officially a non-profit organization with $100 million in initial funding, ready to launch on Friday." Michael nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. "Robert, what if this isn't enough? What if we do all this and she still doesn't understand how much she mattered?" Robert turned to face him. "Michael, I've been your lawyer for 15 years. I've seen you win championships, build businesses, make billions. But in all that time, I've never seen you this nervous." "This matters more," Michael said quietly. "Championships end. Businesses can fail. Money comes and goes. But what Mrs. Hartwell did, what she gave, that's eternal. And if I mess this up, if I don't honor her properly—" "You won't mess it up," Robert assured him. "Because it's not about the production value or the amount of money. It's about gathering people whose lives she touched and letting them tell her what she meant. That's something you can't mess up." Michael took a deep breath. "I hope you're right." On Wednesday afternoon, former students began arriving in Wilmington. Dana had arranged everything: flights, hotels, transportation. Each person received a packet with a schedule and one instruction: "Your presence is a gift. Your story is important. Be ready to share what Mrs. Hartwell meant to you." Judge Marcus Williams arrived from Raleigh. Dr. Patricia Reeves flew in from Atlanta. Sergeant James Cooper drove from Virginia. Angela Martinez brought her 2 children who called Mrs. Hartwell Grandma Eleanor. They gathered Wednesday evening at a hotel conference room. Michael wanted to meet them all, to hear their stories firsthand, to understand the full scope of what Mrs. Hartwell had built. 93 people filled the room. Michael stood at the front, momentarily overwhelmed. "Thank you for coming," he began. "Some of you traveled across the country. Some of you rearranged your lives. All of you are here because Eleanor Hartwell changed you somehow. I'd like to hear about it." What followed was 3 hours of testimony. 3 hours of grown adults crying as they remembered the teacher who saved them. Judge Williams stood first. "I was failing junior year. My family had no money for tutors. Mrs. Hartwell tutored me for free 3 times a week for 2 years. She never missed a session, never made me feel like charity. She told me I had a brilliant legal mind. I thought she was crazy, but she kept saying it until I believed it. Now I'm on the state Supreme Court. Every decision I make, I think, would Mrs. Hartwell be proud." Dr. Reeves was next. "I wanted to be a doctor, but everyone told me to be realistic. Black girls from poor families don't become neurosurgeons. But Mrs. Hartwell said, 'Who told you that? Show me the rule that says you can't.' When I couldn't afford an SAT prep book, she bought it for me. $40 she didn't have. She told me it was an investment. That investment is now saving lives in Atlanta. Sergeant Cooper's voice shook as he spoke. 3 tours in Iraq. 3 years of hell. Mrs. Hartwell wrote me every single week. 341 letters. When I was at my lowest, when I wanted to give up. Those letters reminded me that someone back home believed I mattered. I kept every single one. They're in a box in my closet. My most precious possession, story after story. Each one building on the last. A woman named Teresa stood, tears already falling. Mrs. Hartwell saved my life literally. I was 17 and pregnant. My boyfriend left. My parents kicked me out. I was sleeping in my car, planning to drop out of school. Mrs. Hartwell found out. She let me stay with her for 6 months in her tiny house. She helped me with homework while I was dealing with morning sickness. She was in the delivery room when I had my baby. She babysat so I could finish high school. Teresa's voice broke completely. My daughter is 23 now. She's a teacher because of Mrs. Hartwell. Because she saw what it means to love someone unconditionally. Mrs. Hartwell didn't just save my life. She saved my daughter's future. Michael listened to every story. He took notes. He cried openly, not caring who saw. A young man named Devon spoke last. I had Mrs. Hartwell just 2 years ago. I'm a sophomore in college now. I was going through depression, bad depression. I wrote a poem about wanting to disappear. Mrs. Hartwell asked me to stay after class. She didn't lecture me or tell me it would get better. She told me about losing her son in Iraq. How she'd wanted to disappear too. How she chose to keep living anyway. He wiped his eyes. She told me, Devon, the world needs your light. I need your light. Don't let the darkness win. Then she gave me her personal phone number and said I could call anytime. Anytime. Day or night. She was 83 years old, giving a depressed kid her phone number because she cared if he lived or died. Devon looked directly at Michael. I called her at 2 in the morning once, when things got really bad. She answered on the second ring. Talked to me for an hour. Never once made me feel like a burden. I'm alive because of her. Plain and simple. The room was silent except for quiet crying. Michael stood, his own face wet with tears. Thank you, he said, his voice rough. Thank you for sharing these stories. Thank you for showing me that what I suspected is true. Mrs. Hartwell isn't just a good teacher. She's a force of nature. She's proof that one person who refuses to give up on others can change the entire world. He paused, gathering himself. On Friday, we're going to show her what her life has meant. We're going to let her see herself through your eyes. We're going to make sure she knows, finally, completely, undeniably, that every sacrifice was worth it. That every late night, every dollar given away, every hour spent loving people who felt unlovable, it all mattered. Judge Williams raised his hand. Mr. Jordan, what do you need from us? Tell her, Michael said simply. When you see her on Friday, tell her what you told me tonight. Don't hold back. Don't soften it. Let her hear the truth about what she is. A hero. The room erupted in applause. Thursday morning, Michael woke to a text from Dana. We have a situation. He called immediately. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Everything's too right. We have a problem with space. Over 200 people want to attend tomorrow. News networks are demanding access. The governor decided to come in person, not send a representative. We're running out of room in the gymnasium. Michael smiled. Make it work. Set up overflow viewing in the cafeteria with video screens. This event is for Mrs. Hartwell first, but if the world wants to watch, let them watch. Understood. Also, Mrs. Hartwell's children want to see you. They're in the hotel lobby. 20 minutes later, Michael sat across from Marcus and Janine Hartwell. Both were in their 60s now, both looking nervous. Marcus spoke first. "Mr. Jordan, we don't know how to thank you for this. Our mother has given everything her whole life. To see her finally receive something back, it's overwhelming." "Don't thank me," Michael said. "I'm just making sure the world sees what I saw 35 years ago. Your mother saved me when I was broken. This is me trying to repay a debt that can never truly be repaid." Janine wiped her eyes. "She talks about you sometimes. Did you know that? She's so proud of you. She keeps newspaper clippings about your career in a scrapbook. Every championship, every award. She tells people, 'I taught Michael Jordan. He sat in my classroom.'" Michael felt his throat tighten. "She kept track of me all these years." "Every year," Marcus said. "She's followed your entire career. When you retired the first time, she cried. Said she was proud of everything you'd accomplished, but sad to see you stop playing the game you loved." Michael had to look away. All these years, while he'd forgotten about her, she'd been following him, proud of him, celebrating his success from a distance. "Does she know I'm in Wilmington?" he asked. "No," Janine said. "She doesn't watch much news. She's too busy preparing lessons and grading papers. She has no idea what's coming tomorrow." "Good," Michael said. "Because when she walks into that gymnasium and sees what we've prepared, when she sees all of you, all the people she helped, I want her to be completely surprised. I want her to feel the full weight of her impact, all at once." Marcus leaned forward. "Mr. Jordan, can I tell you something? My mother has been sad lately. She hasn't said it, but we can tell. She's facing foreclosure on her house. Her health isn't great. I think she's wondering if she should finally retire, if maybe she's too old, if maybe she doesn't matter anymore." His voice cracked. "What you're doing tomorrow, it's not just a celebration. It's showing her that her life had meaning. That's a gift beyond price." Michael reached across and took both their hands. "Your mother taught me that greatness isn't about never falling. It's about what you build from the broken pieces. Tomorrow, we're going to show her what she built. And it's beautiful." Thursday evening, Michael made one final visit to Laney High School. He stood outside room 27, Mrs. Hartwell's classroom, and watched through the window. She was there, as always, long after everyone else had gone home. She sat at her desk, grading papers with her red pen, her face tired but focused. A student knocked on her door. Mrs. Hartwell looked up and immediately smiled. "Come in, sweetheart." Michael couldn't hear the conversation, but he watched as Mrs. Hartwell listened to the student, nodded sympathetically, then pulled out her wallet and handed the girl some money. The student hugged her, tears visible even from this distance. Mrs. Hartwell hugged back, patting the girl's shoulder, speaking words Michael couldn't hear but could imagine. "It's okay. You're going to be okay. I believe in you." The student left. Mrs. Hartwell sat back down and returned to her grading, as if giving away money she desperately needed was just another ordinary moment in an ordinary day. Michael's hands clenched. Tomorrow, everything changes. He pulled out his phone and called Dana. "Is everything ready?" "Everything's ready. Stage is set. Video screens are tested. Sound system is perfect. Every person has their assigned place. Media credentials are distributed. Security is briefed. We're ready." "The final surprise? The thing nobody knows about?" Dana's voice softened. "That's ready too. It's beautiful, Michael. It's perfect." Michael took a breath. "Then tomorrow we make history. Not basketball history. Human history. Tomorrow we show the world what it means to honor someone who lived their entire life honoring others." He hung up and took one last look at Mrs. Hartwell. Still working, still giving, still believing after 63 years. "Tomorrow, Mrs. Hartwell," he whispered. "Tomorrow you finally see what you are. Unforgettable. February 14th dawned cold and clear over Winnington. Mrs. Eleanor Hartwell woke at 5 o'clock in the morning, as she had every school day for 63 years. She made her tea, the same cheap brand she'd been buying for decades, and sat at her small kitchen table reviewing her lesson plans. Today they would discuss love in literature. Romeo and Juliet, Elizabeth Barrett Browning, Maya Angelou. Valentine's Day was a perfect opportunity to show students that love wasn't just romance, it was sacrifice, dedication, choosing someone else's good over your own comfort. She thought about Thomas, dead now for 54 years. She still missed him, still wondered what life would have been like if that factory accident had never happened. Would she have kept teaching? Would she have written that novel she'd always dreamed about? But dwelling on what-ifs helped no one. She had students waiting. That was enough. At 6:15 she caught her first bus. The cold bit through her thin coat, but she barely noticed anymore. This was simply life. What she didn't know was that across town, hundreds of people were already awake, getting dressed in their finest clothes, preparing to give her something she'd never had: recognition. Michael Jordan stood in the Laney High School gymnasium at 7 o'clock, surveying the transformation. The space looked incredible: professional lighting, a beautiful stage decorated with flowers, massive video screens, comfortable seating arranged in rows. "It's perfect," he told Dana, who looked exhausted but triumphant. "We've been working all night. The last details just came together an hour ago." Michael checked his watch. "People start arriving at 8. Mrs. Hartwell's bus gets here at 7:45. We need to intercept her before she sees anything unusual." Dr. Foster appeared, looking nervous but excited. "I've arranged everything. I'll meet Mrs. Hartwell at the front entrance and tell her we have a special Black History Month assembly. I'll bring her to my office first. Give her coffee, keep her occupied until 9 o'clock. She won't suspect anything." "Good," Michael said. "At exactly 9, bring her to the gymnasium. Tell her the assembly is starting." Nothing more. Dr. Foster nodded and left. Students began arriving at 7:30, confused about why they'd been told to come early. Teachers directed them to the gymnasium, asking them to be quiet and respectful. "What's going on?" Students whispered to each other. "I don't know, but look at this place. Why are there camera crews here? Is that Michael Jordan?" At 8 o'clock, the former students began filing in. Judge Marcus Williams in his formal robes, Dr. Patricia Reeves in an elegant dress, Sergeant James Cooper in his military uniform, 93 people whose lives had been changed by one teacher. They took their assigned seats in the front rows, many of them crying already just from being there. Mrs. Hartwell's children, Marcus and Janine, sat in the very first row with their families. All 7 grandchildren were present, dressed in their best clothes. At 8:30, the news crews set up their cameras. CNN, NBC, ABC, local stations. Everyone wanted to capture this moment. At 8:45, the current students of Laney High School filled the remaining seats. Over 800 teenagers packed the gymnasium, creating an electric atmosphere of anticipation. At 8:50, Michael saw Dr. Foster through the window, walking with Mrs. Hartwell toward his office. She looked tired from her bus journey, completely unaware that her life was about to change forever. Michael's heart pounded. This was it. At 8:55, he took the stage to address the assembled crowd before Mrs. Hartwell arrived. "Thank you all for being here," he said, his voice amplified through the sound system. "In 5 minutes, Eleanor Hartwell will walk through those doors. She thinks she's attending a routine assembly. She has no idea that everyone in this room is here for her." The gymnasium was silent, hanging on every word. "When she enters, I want you to stand and applaud. But don't rush her, don't overwhelm her. Let her process what's happening. Some of you will speak today, some of you will simply be present. Both are equally important. Your presence tells her that her life mattered. That's the message of today. Eleanor Hartwell, you mattered, you matter, you will always matter. Michael's voice grew thick with emotion. This woman saved my life when I was 15 years old. She taught me that greatness isn't about never falling. It's about what you build from the broken pieces. Today, we show her what she built. And it's beautiful. At exactly 9 o'clock, the gymnasium doors opened. Dr. Foster entered first, his hand gently guiding Mrs. Hartwell by the elbow. She walked slowly, her eyes adjusting to the bright lights. Then she stopped. Her mouth opened in shock as she took in the scene before her. The decorated gymnasium, the cameras, the massive crowd, the flowers, the stage. Every single person stood and began to applaud. Mrs. Hartwell's hand flew to her chest. Her eyes went wide. She looked at Dr. Foster in confusion. "What? What is this?" she whispered. "This is for you, Eleanor," he said gently. "This is all for you." The applause grew louder. Students cheered. Former students cried openly. Mrs. Hartwell stood frozen in the doorway, unable to comprehend what she was seeing. Her eyes scanned the crowd, so many faces, some familiar, some strange, all looking at her with love and gratitude. Then she saw her children in the front row. "Marcus, Janine, what are you doing here? Why aren't you at work?" They couldn't answer. They were both crying too hard. Dr. Foster gently guided Mrs. Hartwell down the center aisle toward the front. With each step she looked around in bewilderment. The applause continued, thunderous and heartfelt. The chair had been placed at center court, directly in front of the stage. Dr. Foster helped her sit. Mrs. Hartwell sat down slowly, her legs shaking. She clutched her purse in her lap like an anchor. Tears were already streaming down her weathered face. The applause finally faded. The crowd sat. Michael Jordan walked onto the stage. Mrs. Hartwell's eyes went even wider. Her hand covered her mouth. "Michael," she whispered. "Michael Jordan." Michael smiled, his own eyes wet. "Hello, Mrs. Hartwell, it's been too long." He walked down from the stage and knelt in front of her chair, taking her trembling hands in his. "Do you remember me?" he asked gently. "Of course I remember you," she said, her voice shaking. "How could I forget? You sat in my classroom, you were my student, you were—" Her voice broke. "You were the boy who was crying. The boy who'd been cut from the team." "That's right," Michael said. "I was broken, and you helped me build something from the broken pieces. You saved my life, Mrs. Hartwell, and I forgot to say thank you. I forgot for 35 years. I'm so sorry it took me this long." Mrs. Hartwell shook her head, tears falling freely. "You don't owe me anything. I was just doing my job. I was just—" "No," Michael interrupted firmly but gently. "You were doing so much more than your job. And today, the world is going to see what I should have shown them decades ago, what real greatness looks like." He stood and returned to the stage, addressing the crowd. "Mrs. Eleanor Hartwell has been teaching at Laney High School for 63 years. 63 years of showing up every single day, of loving students who felt unlovable, of giving money she didn't have to kids who needed it, of staying late, arriving early, sacrificing everything so others could succeed." He gestured to the front rows. "These people in the front, they're not strangers, they're your students, Mrs. Hartwell. They're people whose lives you changed. And they've come from all over the country to tell you what you meant to them." Mrs. Hartwell looked at the front rows, really looked, and her hands flew to her face. "Marcus Williams," she gasped, recognizing the judge. "Patricia Reeves, James Cooper. Oh my goodness, is that Teresa Martinez? Devon Thompson." They all nodded, crying and smiling. Michael continued, "Today is about honoring you. But it's also about showing America something important. We celebrate athletes and celebrities and billionaires, but the real heroes, the people who actually change the world, they're teachers, they're people like you, who give everything and ask for nothing. He pressed a button and the massive video screens came to life. Jennifer's presentation began to play. Images of young Eleanor on her wedding day, teaching her first class, raising 3 children alone after Thomas died. Decades of service, awards that meant little, sacrifices nobody saw. Then the testimonials began, voices of former students recorded over the past week. She saved my life when I wanted to end it. She believed in me when nobody else did. She gave me money she didn't have. She wrote me letters every week for 3 years. She's the reason I'm a doctor. She's the reason I'm alive. Mrs. Hartwell watched the screen, sobbing openly now. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. Her whole life displayed for everyone, all the moments she thought nobody noticed, all the sacrifices she thought didn't matter. When the video ended, Michael waited for the applause to quiet before speaking again. Mrs. Hartwell, I'd like some of your former students to share their stories. Would that be okay? She could only nod, unable to speak. Judge Marcus Williams stood first. He walked to the microphone on the stage, his judicial robes making him look impressive and official. Mrs. Hartwell, I'm not sure you remember me, he began. I remember you, Marcus, she called out, her voice weak but clear. You sat in the 3rd row. You struggled with reading comprehension, but you had brilliant critical thinking skills. You wanted to be a lawyer. Judge Williams smiled, tears in his eyes. You remember? Of course you remember. Mrs. Hartwell, I was failing my junior year. My family had no money. I was going to drop out. You tutored me for free 3 times a week for 2 years. You never missed a single session. You told me I had a legal mind. I thought you were being kind, but you kept saying it until I believed it. He held up his hand, showing his judicial ring. I'm a state Supreme Court judge now. Every decision I make, I think, would Mrs. Hartwell be proud. You didn't just teach me English, you taught me that my background didn't define my future. That matters more than you'll ever know. Mrs. Hartwell was crying so hard her whole body shook. Dr. Patricia Reeves spoke next. Mrs. Hartwell, you bought me an SAT prep book when my family couldn't afford it. $40 you didn't have. You called it an investment. That investment is on a neurosurgeon saving lives in Atlanta. You changed my entire trajectory with $40 and belief. Sergeant Cooper approached the microphone in his military uniform. Ma'am, I brought something to show you. He held up a large box. These are 341 letters. Every letter you wrote me during my 3 tours in Iraq. I kept every single one. When I was in the darkest places imaginable, your letters reminded me that someone back home believed I mattered. You saved my life from 6,000 miles away. Story after story, former students stood and shared how Mrs. Hartwell had changed them. The testimonies went on for over an hour, each one more powerful than the last. Teresa Martinez, now in her 40s, shared how Mrs. Hartwell had taken her in when she was pregnant and homeless at 17. Devon Thompson, barely 20 years old, shared how Mrs. Hartwell had talked him out of suicide just 2 years ago. A woman named Carmen shared how Mrs. Hartwell had paid for her mother's groceries when they were facing eviction. A man named Anthony shared how Mrs. Hartwell had bought him a winter coat when he was walking to school in freezing weather with only a thin jacket. Each story revealed another layer of sacrifice, another moment of love, another life saved. Mrs. Hartwell sat in her chair at center court, overwhelmed, unable to process the magnitude of what she was hearing. She'd never thought about her actions as special. She'd just done what needed to be done. She just loved kids who needed love. But hearing them reflect her impact back to her, seeing their faces, hearing their voices, Understanding that they remembered it broke something open inside her. Finally, after the last testimony, Michael returned to the microphone. "Mrs. Hartwell, we have some announcements to make, some gifts to give you. But first, I want you to know something." He paused, gathering himself. "When you found me crying in your classroom 35 years ago, you told me that greatness isn't about never falling, it's about what you build from the broken pieces." Those words changed my life. They gave me hope when I had none. They turned my pain into power. His voice grew stronger. "But Mrs. Hartwell, you didn't just teach me that lesson, you lived it. You lost your husband at 31. You raised 3 kids alone. You faced poverty, discrimination, exhaustion. You had every reason to give up. But instead you built something beautiful from your broken pieces. You built hope for thousands of us." The crowd erupted in applause again. Michael raised his hand for quiet. "So today, we're going to make sure you know that all those sacrifices mattered. Every late night, every dollar you gave away, every student you believed in. It all mattered." He nodded to Robert, who stood at the side of the stage with a folder. "First, your house. We know you're facing foreclosure. That ends today. Your mortgage is paid in full. Your property taxes are current. All necessary repairs have been arranged and paid for. You will never lose your home." Mrs. Hartwell gasped, her hands shaking uncontrollably. "Second, your medical debt. $38,000 from your pneumonia treatment. It's been eliminated. You owe nothing." She was shaking her head, unable to believe what she was hearing. "Third, transportation. We know you take 2 buses every day, 90 minutes each way. That ends today too. There's a new car waiting for you in the parking lot. Paid in full, insurance covered, maintenance plan included." Mrs. Hartwell tried to speak but couldn't form words. Michael smiled through his tears. "But Mrs. Hartwell, those are just things. Those are just ways to make your life easier. The real gift is something bigger. Something that honors not just you, but every teacher like you." The video screens lit up with a logo, the Eleanor Hartwell Foundation for Teachers. "I'm establishing a foundation in your name," Michael announced. "With an initial funding of $100 million. This foundation will support teachers across America who are struggling financially. It will pay off their debts, help with their housing, ensure they can retire with dignity. It will recognize teachers who go beyond their duty, who pay for supplies from their own pockets, who tutor for free, who love students nobody else loves." The gymnasium exploded with applause and cheers. Students jumped to their feet. Teachers cried openly. Mrs. Hartwell sat motionless, her face a mask of shock and disbelief. Michael walked down from the stage again and knelt before her. "Mrs. Hartwell, you're not the only hero teaching in a struggling school, riding buses at 85, giving everything while the world looks away. There are thousands of you. And it's time America saw you. Really saw you." He took her hands again. "This foundation is my way of saying thank you, not just to you, but to every teacher who saved a kid like me. Every person who believed in someone when nobody else would. You represent all of them, and your name will help us honor them." Mrs. Hartwell finally found her voice. "Michael, I can't. This is too much. I don't deserve this." "Don't deserve it?" Michael's voice rose with emotion. "Mrs. Hartwell, you've given 63 years of your life to others. You've touched 10,000 lives. You've sacrificed everything. If anyone deserves to be honored, it's you." He stood and addressed the crowd. "There's one more thing, something I haven't told anyone except my closest team members. Something that will show Mrs. Hartwell and the world what her life really means." He looked at Mrs. Hartwell with infinite tenderness. "Mrs. Hartwell, you told me once that every young face is a story not yet written. You've been writing those stories for 63 years. Now I want to ask you something." Michael paused, his next words carrying weight that would change everything. "Will you help me write the next chapter?" Mrs. Hartwell looked confused. "I don't understand." Michael smiled mysteriously. "That's what I'm about to explain. And Mrs. Hartwell, it's going to change everything." Michael Jordan returned to the stage, his heart pounding harder than it ever had during any championship game. This moment, this announcement, would define everything that came next. "Mrs. Hartwell," he began, his voice filling the silent gymnasium. "This foundation isn't just about giving money to teachers. Anyone with wealth can write checks. That's important, but it's not enough. What teachers need, what you've always needed, is to be truly seen, to be valued, to know that the work you do is the most important work in the world." He gestured to the crowd. "Everyone in this room understands that because of you, but most of America doesn't understand it yet. They talk about teachers during election years and then forget about them. They pay them poverty wages and expect miracles. They blame them for society's problems, but give them no resources to solve those problems." His voice grew passionate. "That changes now. The Eleanor Hartwell Foundation isn't just going to help teachers financially. It's going to change how America thinks about teaching, how we honor it, how we support it, how we recognize it as the sacred work it truly is." Mrs. Hartwell watched him, still overwhelmed, still unable to fully process what was happening. Michael looked directly at her. "But to do that work properly, this foundation needs something I can't provide alone. It needs a heart, a conscience, a soul. It needs someone who understands teaching from the inside, someone who's lived it, breathed it, sacrificed for it every single day for over 6 decades. He paused, letting his words settle. "Mrs. Hartwell, I don't want you to keep teaching at 85 because you have to. I don't want you taking buses in the cold because you can't afford better. I don't want you grading papers until midnight because there's no other choice." Her eyes filled with fresh tears. "But I am asking you to keep teaching in a different way. Mrs. Hartwell, will you serve as the president of the Eleanor Hartwell Foundation? Will you help me identify which teachers need support? Will you be the voice that tells America what teachers truly need? Will you lead this movement to honor educators across the country?" The gymnasium erupted in applause before Mrs. Hartwell could even respond. Students cheered. Former students stood and clapped. The noise was deafening. Mrs. Hartwell sat frozen, her mouth open, tears streaming down her face. When the noise finally quieted, she shook her head slowly. "Michael, I'm 85 years old. I don't know anything about running a foundation. I've never worked in business or non-profit management. I'm just a teacher. I wouldn't know where to begin." Michael smiled gently and knelt before her again. "Mrs. Hartwell, that's exactly why you're perfect for this role. You don't need to know business. I have experts for that, lawyers, accountants, administrators. What you know is something no expert can teach. You know what it feels like to be a struggling teacher. You know what it's like to choose between buying groceries and buying classroom supplies. You know what it's like to love students so much you give away money you desperately need." He took her hands. "You can spot a passionate teacher instantly because you are one. You know which educators are doing the invisible work that changes lives because you've done that work for 63 years. The foundation doesn't need a business person. It needs you, your wisdom, your experience, your heart." Mrs. Hartwell's voice trembled. "But I'm so old, Michael. I move slowly. I get tired. What if I can't keep up? What if I disappoint you?" "Disappoint me?" Michael's voice cracked with emotion. "Mrs. Hartwell, you could never disappoint me. You saved my life when I was nobody. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. Everything I've accomplished, every championship, Every success. It started in your classroom with you telling me that my broken pieces could build something beautiful. He stood, addressing the crowd again. Mrs. Hartwell, you won't be working alone. Your children have agreed to help. Marcus will provide legal guidance. Janine, with her social work background, will help identify teachers in crisis. Your former students, judges, doctors, business leaders, they're all volunteering their expertise. Judge Williams stood. I'll serve on the board, Mrs. Hartwell. With pride. Dr. Reeves stood next. I'll handle medical outreach for teachers who need healthcare support. One by one, former students stood, pledging their time, their skills, their resources. Sergeant Cooper stood. I'll coordinate support for teachers in military communities. Teresa Martinez stood. I'll work with single-parent teachers who are struggling like I was. Devon Thompson, the young man she'd saved from suicide, stood with tears streaming down his face. Mrs. Hartwell, you told me the world needed my light. Let me help you shine yours brighter. Please. Mrs. Hartwell looked around at all these people she'd taught, helped, loved, now surrounding her with their support. Her shoulders shook with sob. I don't deserve this, she whispered. I was just doing what felt right. I never thought about recognition or rewards. I just loved my students. I know, Michael said softly. That's exactly what makes you extraordinary. You gave without expecting anything in return. You loved without conditions. You believed in people when they couldn't believe in themselves. That's not just anything, Mrs. Hartwell. That's heroism in its purest form. He pulled out a folder and opened it, showing her documents. The Foundation headquarters will be here in Wilmington, close to your home. You won't need to travel unless you want to. We'll provide transportation, support staff, whatever you need. You can work as much or as little as your energy allows. There's no pressure, no demands, just your wisdom guiding us. Mrs. Hartwell stared at the documents, her hands shaking too much to hold them. What would I actually do? She asked quietly. Michael sat in the chair next to her, speaking gently. You'd review applications from teachers who need help. You'd read their stories and decide who the Foundation should support. You'd visit schools occasionally, when you feel up to it, and talk to teachers about what they need. You'd be interviewed by media, telling America why teachers matter. You'd be the face and heart of this movement. He smiled. Basically, you'd do what you've always done. See people who feel invisible and make them feel seen. Believe in people when they've stopped believing in themselves. Love people who need love. Except now, instead of reaching hundreds of students, you'll reach thousands of teachers, and those teachers will reach millions of students. Mrs. Hartwell closed her eyes, trying to comprehend the magnitude of what he was offering. I'm scared, she admitted. I've never done anything like this. What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? Michael laughed softly. Mrs. Hartwell, do you remember what you told me when I was 15 and terrified I wasn't good enough? You said, Michael, feeling scared doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're about to do something important. Brave people aren't fearless. They're scared, but they do it anyway. Her eyes opened, surprised he remembered her exact words from 35 years ago. You told me that, Michael continued, and it changed how I saw fear. Every time I was nervous before a big game, every time I doubted myself, I remembered. Scared, but doing it anyway. That's courage. He took her hand again. Now I'm telling you the same thing. You're scared. That's okay, but you're also the only person who can do this work the right way. The only person who truly understands what teachers need, because you've lived their struggle. You're scared, but will you do it anyway? The gymnasium was silent, everyone waiting for her answer. Mrs. Hartwell looked at her children in the front row. Marcus and Janine both nodded encouragingly, tears in their eyes. She looked at her former students, successful adults now, but in her mind, still the struggling kids she'd loved and believed in. They were all watching her with hope and love. She looked at her current students filling the bleachers, teenagers who needed to see that dedication and sacrifice were valued, that teachers mattered, that love wins in the end. Finally, she looked at Michael Jordan, the crying 15-year-old boy who'd become one of the greatest athletes in history, now kneeling before her, offering to honor her life's work. "You really think I can do this?" she asked, her voice small and uncertain. "I don't think you can," Michael said firmly. "I know you can, because you've been doing impossible things your whole life. Raising 3 kids alone on a teacher's salary? Impossible, but you did it. Teaching for 63 years while battling poverty and loss? Impossible, but you did it. Touching 10,000 lives with nothing but love and belief? Impossible, but you did it." He stood and helped her to her feet. "Mrs. Hartwell, impossible is what you do. This foundation, this is just your next impossible thing. And you won't be alone. You'll have support, resources, and hundreds of people who love you. All we need is your heart, your wisdom, and your willingness to try." Mrs. Hartwell stood shakily, Michael supporting her elbow. She looked out at the massive crowd, over 1,000 people, all there for her, all believing in her. She thought about her husband, Thomas, gone for 54 years. She thought about her son, Thomas Jr., killed in Iraq 21 years ago. She thought about all the students she'd taught, the sacrifices she'd made, the years of struggle and doubt. Had it all been worth it? Had her life mattered? Looking at these faces, these beautiful faces filled with love and gratitude, she finally knew the answer. "Yes," she whispered, then louder. "Yes, I'll do it." The gymnasium exploded. People jumped to their feet, cheering, crying, applauding. The noise was thunderous, overwhelming, beautiful. Michael pulled Mrs. Hartwell into a tight embrace. They stood there, teacher and student, both crying, both grateful, both understanding that this moment was bigger than either of them. When they finally separated, Michael wiped his eyes and returned to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the president of the Eleanor Hartwell Foundation for Teachers, Mrs. Eleanor Hartwell." The applause continued for a full 3 minutes. When it finally quieted, Mrs. Hartwell surprised everyone by stepping up to the microphone herself. Michael helped her onto the stage, and she stood there, tiny and frail but somehow radiating strength. "I don't know what to say," she began, a voice amplified throughout the gymnasium. "I've been teaching for 63 years, and I've given thousands of speeches to students, but right now I can't find words." She paused, gathering herself. "All I ever wanted was to make a difference. When Thomas died and left me with 3 babies, I thought my life was over. But then I realized I could choose. I could let tragedy destroy me, or I could let it teach me to love harder, give more, believe deeper." Her voice grew stronger. "I chose love. Every single day for 63 years, I chose love. When students couldn't afford lunch, I chose love. When they were failing and everyone else gave up on them, I chose love. When they were crying and broken, I chose love." She looked directly at Michael. "And some of them, like Michael, they took that love and built empires with it. They became doctors and judges and soldiers and parents and teachers. They took the broken pieces of their lives and built something beautiful." She turned to the crowd of students. "That's what I want you to understand. Love isn't just a feeling. It's a choice you make every day. It's choosing to believe in someone when they can't believe in themselves. It's choosing to give even when you have nothing left. It's choosing hope over despair, connection over isolation, courage over fear." Tears streamed down her face, but her voice never wavered. "I'm 85 years old. I'm tired. My body hurts. I've lost people I loved. I've struggled financially my entire life. But if I could go back, and choose differently. If I could choose an easier path, I would, because this path, this hard, beautiful, impossible path of loving students and believing in them, this path gave my life meaning. She looked at the cameras broadcasting to the world. America, we need to value our teachers. Not with words during election season, but with real support, real recognition, real respect. Teachers are raising your children. They're shaping the future. They're choosing love every single day, often with no resources and no recognition. That needs to change. Her voice rose with passion. The Eleanor Hartwell Foundation will change it. We will support struggling teachers. We will recognize heroes who work in the shadows. We will tell America that teaching is sacred work, and those who do it deserve our highest honor. She paused, emotion overwhelming her for a moment. Thank you, Michael, for seeing me. Thank you to every former student who came here today. Thank you to my children and grandchildren. Thank you to this community. And most of all, thank you to every teacher watching this, who feels invisible and unvalued. I see you. This foundation sees you. You matter more than you know. The applause was deafening. Mrs. Hartwell stepped back from the microphone, exhausted but radiant. Michael helped her back to her chair, and she sank into it gratefully. But the event wasn't over. Michael returned to the microphone with a smile. There's one more surprise, he said. One final gift that I haven't told anyone about, not even Mrs. Hartwell. Mrs. Hartwell looked up, startled. Michael, no more, this is already too much. My heart can't take any more surprises. This one you'll like, Michael promised. I hope. He gestured to the gymnasium doors, which opened on cue. A figure walked in, a woman in her 50s with grey-streaked hair and a familiar face. Mrs. Hartwell squinted, trying to see clearly. Then her hand flew to her mouth. Rebecca? She gasped. Rebecca Thompson? Rebecca Thompson walked down the center aisle, crying openly. She was the student who disappeared in 1993, the one Mrs. Hartwell had searched for desperately, worried sick about what had happened. Rebecca reached Mrs. Hartwell and knelt before her, just as Michael had. Hi, Mrs. Hartwell, she said through her tears. I'm sorry it took me 32 years to say thank you. Mrs. Hartwell touched Rebecca's face with shaking hands. My girl, my sweet girl, I looked for you. I was so worried. What happened? Where did you go? Rebecca took a deep breath. Mrs. Hartwell, there's something I never told you, something I need you to know now. And as Rebecca began to share her story, the story of abuse, of planning suicide, of running away, of the one conversation with Mrs. Hartwell that saved her life, every person in the gymnasium understood they were witnessing something sacred. This wasn't just a celebration. This was a revelation of how one person's love could ripple across decades, saving lives in ways she'd never know, building hope in the darkest places. Mrs. Hartwell listened to Rebecca's story, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe, understanding for the first time the full weight of what she'd done by simply caring, simply asking if someone was okay, simply telling a student that the world needed their light. And as Rebecca finished her story, as she revealed that she'd spent 28 years as a social worker helping abused children because Mrs. Hartwell had first helped her, the truth became undeniable. One teacher who refuses to give up on people can change the entire world. Rebecca Thompson held Mrs. Hartwell's hands, both women crying so hard they could barely speak. The gymnasium remained silent except for the sound of 1,000 people quietly weeping. You saved me, Rebecca whispered, and I never got to tell you. For 32 years I wanted to find you, to thank you, but I was ashamed. Ashamed of running away, of disappearing, of all the years I stayed hidden. Mrs. Hartwell shook her head fiercely. No, my sweet girl. You have nothing to be ashamed of. You survived. You escaped. You built a beautiful life helping others. That's everything. That's all that matters. Rebecca wiped her eyes. Oh, Mrs. Hartwell, do you know how many children I've helped in 28 years? Over 2,000. 2,000 kids who were being abused, who were planning to run away or worse. I helped them find safety, find hope, find a reason to keep living. She squeezed Mrs. Hartwell's hands tighter. Every single one of those 2,000 children exists because you saved me first. Because you asked if I was okay. Because you told me the world needed my light. That's 2,000 lives you touched without even knowing it. 2,000 futures that exist because of one conversation you probably don't even remember. Mrs. Hartwell was shaking her head, overwhelmed. I remember that essay you wrote about feeling invisible. I remember being worried about you. I remember wishing I'd done more, said more, helped more when you disappeared. You did enough, Rebecca said firmly. You did more than enough. You gave me the one thing I needed most, belief that I mattered. That was everything. Michael stepped forward, his own face wet with tears. Mrs. Hartwell, this is what I wanted you to understand. This is why today matters. You've spent 63 years wondering if your work meant anything. Wondering if the sacrifices were worth it. Wondering if anyone remembered or cared. He gestured to the crowd. But look around. Rebecca is just one story among thousands. Every person in this room has a story like hers. A moment when you saw them, believed in them, loved them when they felt unlovable. And they took that moment and built lives from it. He pulled out his phone and held it up. While we've been here today, the hashtag #ThankATeacher has been trending worldwide. Millions of people are sharing stories about teachers who changed their lives. Because of you, Mrs. Hartwell. Because your story reminded the world that teachers are heroes. He showed her his phone screen. Tweet after tweet scrolled past. My teacher, Mr. Rodriguez, stayed after school every day to tutor me. I'm an engineer now because of him. #ThankATeacher. Mrs. Chen gave me lunch money when I was too embarrassed to ask. I'll never forget her kindness. #ThankATeacher. Coach Williams believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. Changed my whole life. #ThankATeacher. Story after story, teacher after teacher. Lives changed by educators who never knew the impact they had. Mrs. Hartwell stared at the phone, trying to comprehend the scale of what was happening. This is because of today, she asked quietly. This is because of you, Michael corrected. Your story gave people permission to remember, to be grateful, to say thank you to the teachers who saved them. He put his phone away and addressed the crowd. But here's what I haven't told anyone yet, not even my team. There's one final piece to this day. One last gift that shows Mrs. Hartwell and every teacher watching what their work truly means. He looked at Mrs. Hartwell with such tenderness that everyone in the gymnasium felt it. Mrs. Hartwell, you told me once that every young face is a story not yet written. You've spent your life writing those stories with love and belief. Now I want to give you something that shows how many stories you've written. Michael nodded to Dana, who stood at the side of the stage with a large leather-bound book. Over the past week, we've collected messages from your students. Not just the ones here today, but as many as we could find. We reached out through social media, through school records, through word of mouth. We asked them one simple question: what did Mrs. Eleanor Hartwell mean to you? Dana brought the book to Michael, who carried it carefully to Mrs. Hartwell. This book contains over 3,000 messages. 3,000 students who remember you, who credit you with changing their lives, who want you to know that you mattered. He placed the heavy book in Mrs. Hartwell's lap. This is your legacy, Mrs. Hartwell. Not a trophy or a plaque, not money or fame. This. 3,000 lives touched. 3,000 people who are better because you existed. 3,000 stories that exist because you believed in them. Mrs. Hartwell opened the book with trembling hands. The first page showed a photo of a young man in a graduation gown. "Mrs. Hartwell, you told me I was smart enough for college when I thought I was stupid. I just graduated medical school. You were right. Thank you for believing in me. David Chen, glass of..." She turned the page. Another photo, another message. "You gave me $20 for prom when my family couldn't afford it. That $20 meant I wasn't left out, wasn't embarrassed, wasn't alone. I'll never forget that kindness. Maria Rodriguez." Class of..." Page after page, photo after photo, message after message. "You stayed after school to help me with reading. I was 3 grade levels behind. Now I'm a librarian, helping other struggling readers. Thank you." James Wilson, class of..." You told me being gay didn't make me wrong or broken. In 1987, nobody said that. You saved my life." Stephen Park, class of..." You paid for my SAT twice when I couldn't afford it. I'm now a teacher because of you." Angela Martinez, class of..." Mrs. Hartwell read page after page, her tears falling onto the leather binding. 3,000 messages, 3,000 lives, 3,000 moments she'd forgotten or never known about, all remembered, all treasured, all returning to her now like gifts. Michael knelt beside her chair again. "Do you see, Mrs. Hartwell? Do you see what you built from your broken pieces? You lost your husband. You struggled with poverty. You worked 2 jobs. You sacrificed everything. And look what you built. Look at these lives. This is what your pain created, hope for thousands of people who had none." Mrs. Hartwell couldn't speak. She could only turn pages, read messages, see faces of students she'd loved. Some she remembered clearly, some she'd forgotten. All of them remembering her. After several minutes, she looked up at Michael. "I never knew," she whispered. "All these years, I never knew if anything I did mattered. I just kept showing up, kept trying, kept loving them. But I never knew if it made a difference." "It made all the difference," Michael said. "To me, to Rebecca, to 3,000 others whose names are in that book, to thousands more whose names aren't in there but whose lives you changed anyway." He stood and addressed the crowd one final time. "This is my gift to Mrs. Hartwell, but it's also my message to every teacher watching. Your work matters. The late nights grading papers, they matter. The money you spend from your own pocket on supplies, it matters. The students you believe in when nobody else will, they matter most of all." His voice grew passionate. Teachers don't change the world with grand gestures. They change it with small moments repeated thousands of times. A word of encouragement here, a few dollars for lunch there, staying after school, showing up when you're exhausted, believing in a kid who's given up on themselves. Those small moments, they're everything. He pointed to Mrs. Hartwell. "Eleanor Hartwell is proof. She never sought recognition, never asked for praise, never expected anything in return. She just loved students. Day after day, year after year for 63 years. And look what that created. Look at this room full of successful, grateful, loving adults who exist because one teacher refused to give up on them." The applause started again, building like a wave. Michael raised his voice over it. "The Eleanor Hartwell Foundation launches today with $100 million and a mission to make sure every teacher in America knows they're valued, knows they're seen, knows they matter. We'll start by supporting 500 struggling teachers this year. Next year, 1,000. We'll keep growing until every educator who needs help receives it." He paused for effect. "But money is just the beginning. The real mission is changing hearts, making America understand that teachers aren't babysitters or paper pushers. They're the architects of the future. They're heroes, and they deserve our highest honor." He looked directly at the cameras. "So here's my challenge to everyone watching. Think about a teacher who changed your life. Find them, thank them, tell them what they meant to you. Don't wait 35 years like I did. Don't assume they know. Tell them today, right now. Because teachers need to hear that their work matters. They need to know they're not invisible. He turned back to Mrs. Hartwell, who was still clutching the book of messages. Mrs. Hartwell, you are not invisible. You never were. You were just surrounded by people too blind to see you. But today, the whole world sees you. And what they see is beautiful. The gymnasium erupted in a standing ovation that lasted 5 full minutes. Students cheered, former students cried. Teachers from across the district who'd come to honor their colleague stood with tears streaming down their faces. Mrs. Hartwell sat in her chair, holding the book, overwhelmed by the magnitude of love surrounding her. She'd spent 63 years giving love, never expecting any in return. Now it was returning to her in waves, and she didn't know how to hold it all. Michael helped her stand. She was shaky, exhausted, emotionally drained. But she was also radiant, glowing with the knowledge that her life had meant something, that her sacrifices had purpose, that She stepped to the microphone one more time. I want to say something to all the teachers watching, she said, her voice weak but determined. Teaching is hard. The hardest thing I've ever done. There are days you want to quit. Days you think nothing you do matters. Days you feel invisible and unappreciated. She paused, looking at the book in her arms. But it does matter. Every single moment matters. Every student you encourage, every hand you hold, every tear you wipe, it all matters. You're planting seeds you may never see grow, but they grow. They grow into doctors and judges and parents and teachers. They grow into people who remember you, who credit you, who carry your love into the world. Her voice broke, but she continued. Don't give up. Please, don't give up. The world needs you. Your students need you. Even when they don't say it, even when they can't show it, they need you. You matter more than you'll ever know. She looked at Michael, and to Michael, my student, my friend, my reminder that love returns. Thank you. Thank you for seeing me when I felt invisible. Thank you for honoring not just me, but every teacher who struggles in silence. Thank you for remembering where you came from and coming back to say it mattered. She touched his face gently. You were always going to be great, Michael. Even when you were crying in my classroom, I could see it. But this is your greatest achievement. Not the championships or the money or the fame. This, choosing to lift up others, choosing to honor quiet heroes, choosing love over everything else, that's real greatness. Michael pulled her into an embrace, both of them crying, both of them understanding that this moment, this exchange of gratitude and love, was what life was really about. Not success, not achievement, not recognition, connection. Love. The sacred exchange of seeing someone and letting them see you in return. As they stood there, the gymnasium full of people who loved them both, something remarkable happened. Students began to stand, one by one, and approach the stage. They came with flowers, with cards, with handmade signs. They lined up to hug Mrs. Hartwell, to thank her, to tell her she mattered. You helped me pass English when I thought I'd fail. You listened when I needed to talk. You made me feel like I wasn't stupid. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. Over and over. Student after student, each one carrying a piece of Mrs. Hartwell's legacy, returning it to her now as a gift. The line stretched across the gymnasium. It took 2 hours for every student to have their moment with her. Mrs. Hartwell stood the entire time, exhausted but determined, hugging each one, speaking words of encouragement, still teaching even in this moment of being honored. Finally, the last student approached a quiet girl named Rosa, who'd spoken to Michael days earlier. "Mrs. Hartwell," Rosa said shyly, "I don't have anything special to say. I just wanted you to know that watching you, seeing how you never give up, how you keep loving us even when you're tired, it makes me want to be a teacher too. So I can be like you." Mrs. Hartwell pulled Rosa into a tight hug. "Then you'll be a wonderful teacher, sweetheart, because the best teachers are the ones who remember what it felt like to need someone to believe in them. You'll remember, and you'll change lives because of it." Rosa nodded, crying, and walked away carrying something precious. The knowledge that her life had purpose, that she could matter, that love was worth choosing. As the event finally began to wind down, as people started filing out of the gymnasium still crying and hugging and talking about what they'd witnessed, Michael stood with Mrs. Hartwell in the center of the court. "How do you feel?" he asked softly. Mrs. Hartwell looked around at the now empty space where so much love had been shared. "Grateful," she said. "Overwhelmed. Exhausted. But mostly seen. For the first time in my life, I feel truly seen." She looked at Michael. "You asked me earlier if I'd help you with the foundation, if I'd be president and guide the work. I said yes, but I was scared. Scared I wasn't good enough, wasn't smart enough, wasn't strong enough." She smiled through her tears. "But after today, after seeing all these faces, hearing all these stories, understanding that my life really did matter, I'm not scared anymore. I know exactly what teachers need, because I've needed it. I know exactly how to recognize heroes because I've been one." Her voice grew stronger. "So yes, Michael, I'll lead this foundation. I'll work until my last breath to make sure no teacher ever feels as invisible as I felt. I'll make sure they know their work matters, because it does. God, it does." Michael smiled, his heart full. "Then let's get started. We have thousands of teachers to help, thousands of heroes to honor, thousands of stories to tell." Mrs. Hartwell nodded, clutching her book of messages. "Let's change the world, Michael, one teacher at a time." And as they walked out of the gymnasium together, teacher and student united in purpose, everyone watching understood they'd witnessed something extraordinary. Not just a celebration, not just a surprise, a revolution. A revolution that started with one question 35 years ago. "Are you okay?" and ended with a promise to ask that question to every struggling teacher in America. Because that's what love does. It sees people, it believes in them, it refuses to let them feel invisible. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, that love returns to you multiplied by thousands, reminding you that your life, your beautiful, struggling, sacrificing life, mattered more than you ever knew. The next morning, Mrs. Eleanor Hartwell sat in her living room, her paid-off living room in her saved home, holding a cup of tea with shaking hands. She hadn't slept. How could she? Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the faces from yesterday, heard the voices, felt the overwhelming wave of love that had nearly knocked her over. The book of 3,000 messages sat on her coffee table. She'd stayed up until 4 in the morning reading every single one, every message, every photo, every story of a life she'd touched without knowing. Now in the quiet morning light, she felt different, lighter somehow, as if a weight she'd been carrying for 63 years had finally been lifted. Her phone had been ringing constantly since dawn, news reporters wanting interviews, former students calling to talk more. The foundation's new office manager asking about scheduling. The world suddenly wanted her attention. But there was a knock at her door that surprised her. It was only 7 in the morning. She opened it to find Michael Jordan standing on her porch, looking as exhausted as she felt. "Michael, what are you doing here so early?" He smiled. "May I come in?" She ushered him inside, suddenly self-conscious about her tiny, modest home. But Michael looked around with genuine warmth. "This is nice," he said, "cozy, filled with books. It feels like you." She offered him tea, and they sat together at her small kitchen table. "I couldn't sleep," Michael admitted. "I kept thinking about yesterday, about everything that happened, and I realized there's something I need to give you. Something I wrote last night." He pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket and handed it to her. "What is this?" "A letter. I should have written it 35 years ago, but better late than never. Read it when I'm gone. I don't think I can watch you read it without falling apart." Mrs. Hartwell took the envelope, feeling its weight. "Michael, you've already given me so much. The foundation, the house, the car, everything. You don't need to give me anything else." Michael shook his head. "Those are just things. This letter, it's different. It's the truth about what you meant to me, what you still mean. I needed to write it down because I've spent too many years not saying it." He stood to leave, then paused at the door. "Mrs. Hartwell, yesterday I told the world that you're my greatest teacher, but I didn't tell them the full truth. You didn't just teach me about basketball or success or perseverance. You taught me how to be human, how to see people, how to love without expecting anything back. That's the lesson that mattered most." He kissed her cheek gently. "Read the letter, and know that everything I said in it is true." After he left, Mrs. Hartwell sat with the envelope for a long time. Finally, with trembling fingers, she opened it. The letter was handwritten in Michael's distinctive script. Strong, clear, confident. "Dear Mrs. Hartwell, I'm writing this at 2 o'clock in the morning because I can't stop thinking about something you said yesterday. You said you never knew if your work mattered. You said you just kept showing up, kept trying, kept loving students, but you never knew if it made a difference. Mrs. Hartwell, I need you to understand something. You didn't just make a difference. You made..." When I walked into your classroom that day in October 1979, I wasn't just a kid who'd been cut from a basketball team. I was a kid who'd decided he was worthless. I'd decided that if I wasn't good enough for varsity basketball, I wasn't good enough for anything. I was ready to give up on everything. School, sports, life. You found me crying, and you didn't do what most adults would do. You didn't tell me it would be okay, or that there would be other opportunities. You didn't minimize my pain or try to fix it quickly. Instead, you sat with me in that pain. You told me about your own failures. You showed me that struggle wasn't weakness, it was the raw material for building something beautiful. You told me that greatness isn't about never falling, it's about what you build from the broken pieces. Those words changed everything for me. Not because they made the pain go away, but because they gave it meaning. You transformed my rejection from something that defined me into something that could forge me. But Mrs. Hartwell, that conversation was just the beginning. What really saved me was the months that followed. The 3 afternoons every week when you tutored me for free. The way you pushed me to think deeper, work harder, believe in myself more. The stories you shared about your life, losing Thomas, raising 3 kids alone, choosing purpose over bitterness. You taught me that success isn't measured by trophies or money or fame. It's measured by how many people are better because you existed, by how much love you gave even when you had nothing left, by whether you made broken people believe they could be whole. I won 6 NBA championships. I built a billion-dollar brand. I'm considered one of the greatest athletes in history. But none of it would exist without you. Because you're the one who taught me that being cut from a team wasn't the end of my story, it was the beginning. Every time I faced adversity in my career, every injury, every loss, every moment of doubt, I heard your voice. What will you build from these broken pieces, Michael? and I'd find a way to build something stronger. But here's what I need you to know, Mrs. Hartwell. The lesson you taught me about basketball and success. That was important, but it wasn't the most important thing you taught me. The most important thing was how to see people. I watched you for months. I saw how you treated every student like they mattered. The smart kids and the struggling ones. The popular kids and the outcasts. You saw them all. You believed in them all. You loved them all. I saw you give money you didn't have to students who needed it. I saw you stay late helping kids who'd been written off by everyone else. I saw you cry over a student who dropped out, mourning their potential like it was your own. You taught me that real greatness isn't about being the best. It's about making others believe they can be their best. It's about seeing potential in people when they can't see it themselves. It's about choosing love over indifference, connection over convenience, belief over doubt. That lesson has shaped everything I've done, every teammate I encouraged, every young player I mentored, every person I've tried to lift up. I learned that from watching you. Mrs. Hartwell, yesterday I launched a foundation with $100 million to honor teachers. That's important work and I'm proud of it. But I need to be honest with you about something. This foundation isn't just about helping teachers. It's about paying a debt I can never fully repay. It's about taking the love you gave me, love I didn't deserve, love I couldn't return, love that asked for nothing, and multiplying it across thousands of teachers who are just like you. Because you're not unique, Mrs. Hartwell. I mean that as the highest compliment. There are thousands of teachers across America who are doing exactly what you did. Giving everything, expecting nothing, loving students who feel unlovable, working 2 jobs to survive, spending their own money on supplies, staying late, believing in kids when nobody else will. And just like you, they wonder if it matters. They wonder if anyone sees them. They wonder if the sacrifice is worth it. The Eleanor Hartwell Foundation exists to answer that question. Yes, it matters. Yes, we see you. Yes, the sacrifice is worth it. Because you're not just teaching subjects, you're teaching humans how to be human. And that's the most important work in the world. But Mrs. Hartwell, I also need to tell you something else. Something I'm ashamed of. I forgot you. Not completely. Not really. I remembered you sometimes at big moments when I won championships or achieved milestones. I'd think I should call Mrs. Hartwell. I should tell her thank you. I should let her know I made it. But I never did. I got caught up in my career, my fame, my empire. I told myself I was too busy. I told myself you probably didn't remember me anyway. I told myself a lot of things that were really just excuses for the truth. I forgot to honor the person who made everything possible. That changed when I saw you on that news video. Riding buses at 85, still teaching, still giving, still loving students with everything you had. And I realized with crushing guilt that while I'd been building an empire, you'd been struggling. While I'd been celebrated worldwide, you'd been invisible. While I'd been accumulating wealth, you'd been facing foreclosure. I'll regret that for the rest of my life. Not because you expected anything from me, I know you didn't, but because you deserved better. You deserved to know that the boy you saved grew up and never forgot the lesson. That every success I achieved was built on the foundation you laid. That's why yesterday mattered so much to me. Not just to help you, but to make sure the world knows what I should have shouted from the rooftops decades ago. Eleanor Hartwell is a hero. She saved my life. She shaped my character. She taught me what greatness really means. And now, Mrs. Hartwell, I'm asking you to do something that might be the hardest thing you've ever done. I'm asking you to let yourself receive. You've spent 63 years giving, teaching, loving, sacrificing. You're extraordinary at giving, but receiving, that's harder for you. You want to say no to help. You want to minimize your impact. You want to deflect praise and say you were just doing your job. But, Mrs. Hartwell, I need you to stop doing that. I need you to receive the love that's coming to you now. I need you to accept that your life mattered, not in a small way, but in a massive, world-changing way. I need you to understand that you're not just a good teacher, you're one of the greatest humans I've ever known. Can you do that? Can you let yourself be honored? Can you accept that you deserve every bit of recognition, every thank you, every expression of gratitude that's coming your way? Because here's the truth, Mrs. Hartwell. The Eleanor Hartwell Foundation needs you to receive. Struggling teachers across America need to see someone like them being honored. They need to see that dedication is valued, that sacrifice is recognized, that quiet heroism matters. If you deflect dishonor, if you minimize your impact, you're telling every struggling teacher watching that their work doesn't deserve recognition either. But if you receive it, if you stand tall and say, yes, I gave everything, and yes, it mattered, then you give them permission to believe their work matters too. So please, Mrs. Hartwell, receive this. Accept it. Let yourself be celebrated. Not for your sake, but for every teacher who needs to see that their invisible work is actually the most visible, most important work in the world. I'm going to end this letter with something I should have said 35 years ago but never did. Thank you. Thank you for seeing me when I felt invisible. Thank you for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. Thank you for showing me that pain could become power. Thank you for teaching me that greatness isn't about trophies. It's about how many lives you touch with love. Thank you for being the first person who made me feel like I mattered. Thank you for changing my life. And thank you for showing me what I want to do with the rest of my life. Because yesterday, watching you receive the love you've earned, watching 3,000 students tell you that you mattered, I realized something. I don't want to be remembered for basketball. I don't want my legacy to be championships or wealth or fame. I want to be remembered for honoring people like you. For taking the lesson you taught me, see people, believe in them, love them, and spreading it as far as I can. I'm 60 years old, Mrs. Hartwell. It's time I finally grew up and learned what really matters. And there's no better teacher than you. So, this is my promise. I will spend the rest of my life working alongside you on this foundation. Not as a donor or a figurehead, but as a student. I'm going to learn from you how to give without expecting. How to love without conditions. How to see people who feel invisible. You told me once that every young face is a story not yet written. Well, my story isn't finished either. And this next chapter, the chapter where I try to honor your legacy by living it, this is the chapter I want to be remembered for. Thank you for being my teacher. Not just in English, not just in high school, but in the only lesson that really matters, how to be human. With love and gratitude forever. Michael. Mrs. Hartwell read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down her face and soaking the paper. Her hands shook so badly she could barely hold it. All these years, she'd wondered, had she made a difference? Did her sacrifices matter? Did anyone remember? Now she knew. She folded the letter carefully, held it to her chest, and cried. Not tears of sadness or even joy, but tears of completion. Of a circle closing. Of a life's work finally, undeniably, beautifully mattering. Later that morning, she called Michael. I read your letter, she said, her voice still thick with emotion. And, Michael asked nervously, and I have something to tell you. You said in your letter that you forgot to honor me for 35 years. That you feel guilty about that. I do, Michael said quietly. Well, stop feeling guilty. Because, Michael, I want you to understand something. Yesterday wasn't just about you honoring me. It was about me finally understanding what I'd built. I spent 63 years planting seeds and never seeing what grew from them. Yesterday I saw the garden. Her voice grew stronger. You didn't fail me by waiting 35 years. You gave me the greatest gift at exactly the right time. If you'd done this when I was younger, I wouldn't have appreciated it the same way. But now, at 85, after a lifetime of wondering if anything mattered, now I needed to see it, and you showed me. Michael was silent, emotion overwhelming him. So thank you, Michael. Not for the money or the foundation or the recognition, though those are beautiful gifts. Thank you for showing me that love returns, that seeds grow, that nothing done in love is ever wasted. She paused. And thank you for asking me to lead this foundation. Because you're right. I've spent my whole life giving. Now it's time to teach others how to give, how to see, how to love. And I can't think of a better way to spend whatever time I have left. So you're really going to do this? Michael asked. Even though it's hard and scary and you've never done anything like it? Mrs. Hartwell smiled. Michael, you once asked me how to be brave when you're terrified. Do you remember what I said? You said brave people aren't fearless. They're scared, but they do it anyway. Exactly, so yes, I'm scared, but I'm doing it anyway. Because this work matters, these teachers matter, and if my story can help even one struggling teacher believe their work is valuable, then it's worth every ounce of fear. Michael laughed, his voice full of joy and relief. Then let's get started, Mrs. Hartwell. We have a world to change. We certainly do, she agreed. One teacher at a time. After they hung up, Mrs. Hartwell sat in her living room, surrounded by evidence of her new reality. The book of 3,000 messages, Michael's letter, news articles about the foundation, flowers and cards from well-wishers. But the thing that made her smile most was a text message from Rosa, the quiet student who wanted to become a teacher. Mrs. Hartwell, I watched everything yesterday. I cried through the whole thing. Thank you for showing me what it means to be a teacher. I'm going to be just like you someday. I'm going to love students who need love. I'm going to believe in them when they don't believe in themselves. I'm going to give everything just like you did. Because now I know it matters. Thank you for mattering. Mrs. Hartwell read that message and understood with perfect clarity. Her work wasn't ending, it was multiplying. Every student she'd taught would go on to touch other lives. Every teacher the foundation helped would go on to help thousands of students. Every person who heard her story would remember to thank their own teachers, to see their own heroes, to choose love over indifference. The ripples would continue long after she was gone, spreading across generations, touching millions of lives she'd never meet. That was the real gift. Not the money or recognition or even the love that had returned to her yesterday. The real gift was knowing that her choice to love, made every single day for 63 years, had created something eternal, something that would outlive her, something that would change the world. Mrs. Eleanor Hartwell, teacher, hero, believer in broken people, sat in her saved home on that Saturday morning, and finally, truly, completely understood. Her life had mattered, and it always would. Mrs. Eleanor Hartwell's story reminds us that heroes walk among us every single day. Teachers, neighbors, friends, people who give everything and ask for nothing in return. So tell us, where are you watching this from? Drop your location in the comments below, and if this story touched your heart, hit that like button right now. It helps us spread these messages of kindness to more people who need to hear them. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you never miss another inspiring story. Because the world needs more love, more gratitude, and more people like Mrs. Hartwell. And speaking of incredible stories, we have another one waiting for you right now. Click on the video appearing on your screen. Trust us, you won't want to miss it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for caring. And most importantly, Thank you for choosing kindness.